We are recording. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Seeing a presence of a quorum, I am calling the April 27th, 2026 regular meeting of the Town Council to order at 6:31 p.m. Please be advised that this meeting is being held in person and that the remote access options for members of the public is provided as a courtesy only. In the event of technology issues with the remote connection, the meeting will continue in person as scheduled, as long as there is a quorum of the council present in the town room or through technological means. Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025 extended through June 30th, 2027, the ability of public bodies to meet without a quorum of the council physically present at a meeting location, although we have a quorum of the council present in the town room. This meeting is being recorded and is accessible in real time via Zoom, by phone, and as a live broadcast on Amherst Media Channel 9 and at amherstmedia.org. At this time, I will call upon each counselor by the name they have indicated that they would like to be addressed. This will indicate that we can hear you and you can hear us. Counselor Brevick. Here. Counselor Cannell Martin. Here. Andy Churchill.
Here.
Anna Devlin Gauthier.
Present.
Lynn Griesemer.
Present.
Mandy Jo Haneke is present. Counselor Lord.
Present.
Sam McLeod.
Present.
Pam Rooney.
Here.
Counselor Ryan.
I'm here.
Kathy Shane.
I'm here.
Jennifer Taub.
Here.
And is Counselor Walker present yet? We will watch out for Counselor Walker. If counselors have technical issues, please let the council clerk know or call a point of personal privilege. There will be one public comment period during the general public comment. There is also a public hearing, and there will be public comment during that hearing on the hearing matter. If you are in the town room, please sign up with the council clerk to make public comment or to speak during that hearing. If you are attending remotely, I will ask for you to raise your hand in the Zoom application when we reach the time for public comment. At this time, we're going to then move on. Announcements were on the agenda. There are no added announcements at this time as far as I know. So we will move on to hearings. We have a public hearing on an Eversource petition to install an underground conduit at College Street and Dickinson Street intersection. At this time, 6:33, I am calling that public hearing to order. The order of public hearing will be a presentation if we have one, and then counselor comments, and then the public, any questions, comments on that public hearing on that subject matter. We'll go back to council comments and questions, and then we will move to close or extend the public hearing. So is it, Athena, is it Guilford doing the presentation at all?
There's not a presentation. I believe there's an Eversource rep.
Is there an Eversource rep
Yep.
here? Excellent. Come on up. Sorry, I missed
Guilford
you.
is here if there are questions.
Mandy Jo.
Excellent.
Alicia's here.
Oh, excellent. Alicia, Counselor Walker, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, welcome. Can you please give us a little indication as to what this request is? You should make sure the light is on, and if it is, you probably have to speak closer to the mic than I do.
They should introduce themselves.
Yes.
Travis Walsh, I'm a project designer with Eversource.
Excellent.
So this project is to aid in an electrical service upgrade for Amherst College. It's going to be converting the service to an essentially underground fed service from the existing manhole at the intersection of Dickinson Street and College Street in Amherst. And it's essentially we're requesting to install conduit from that existing manhole onto Amherst College property to support this project.
Thank you. Are there any questions from counselors or comments from counselors? Kathy.
I just have one. Seeing where it's located, are you going to be able to go underground without disrupting the surface at all?
So the manhole is existing. Really the petition work tonight is that we're going to need to saw cut the road and install 4 conduits from the corner of really almost the center of the intersection of College Street and Dickinson. And it's a 10-foot span from our manhole to the east drive, which is the Amherst College property. And that is the first phase of us bringing new underground conductors. So once we energize the new underground conductors and the service equipment, we can take down the existing overhead infrastructure.
Anna,
I'm over here, sorry. I want to thank you. We've been a bit of a pain, I think, in past years to try to get more things moved underground. So I appreciate that you are moving even just 10 feet underground. Thank you.
Lynn,
Will the conduit be available to other utilities?
This specific conduit, as of right now, would not be available to other utilities. This is strictly feeding some existing electrical infrastructure that Amherst College is going to be taking over. That is ours, and it is only 4 conduits, and 2 of those are going to be populated by essentially EverSource electrical lines, and the other 2 are in our standards. We require spares in the event of an emergency. We have those spare conduits to quickly pull in conductor if one fails, essentially. So we do kind of keep those spares and reserve the right to those.
anything else?
Actually, I do. Did you approach any of the other utilities to see if they wanted to join in this project?
Yeah, so we notify Verizon anytime we remove poles or put new infrastructure in. So they are notified. It's up to them really to move forward with it. But as far as the conduits that we install, EverSource installs from our manhole, which is energized by 13,000 volts. So really any communications couldn't be anywhere around us.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other counselor questions or comments? Seeing none, we will move to public comment and questions on this petition to install an underground conduit. If you are participating remotely and have a comment or question regarding this petition specifically, please raise your hand now. Athena, are there any people signed up to comment on this petition?
Are any of those who signed up for public comment speaking to this petition? No.
And I am seeing no hands remotely requesting to comment on this petition. So I will move back to the counselors. Are there any additional questions or comments on the petition?
Point of order, can we just confirm that Councilor Walker can hear and be heard, please?
I did. Yes, that's okay. You must have been signing people up when I did that, but I did. Seeing no other counselor hands, I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second by Shane.
Seeing no hands, we will move to a vote to close the public hearing. We start with Counselor Cano Martin,
Yes.
Andy Churchill,
Yes.
Anna Devlin Gauthier,
Aye.
Lynn Griesemer,
Aye.
Counselor Lord, and Mandy Johannicki is an aye. I'm sorry, I skipped right over me. Counselor Lord, Sam McLeod,
Aye.
Pam Rooney,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
Yes.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
and Counselor Brevik.
Yes.
Thank you. That is unanimous. The public hearing is closed. Thank you for showing up tonight. We will be voting on this. It is currently on consent. We have public comment before we get to consent. You're welcome to stay, or you can leave if you'd like. But thank you for coming tonight. We are now moving on to public comment. This is the one general public comment period. Anyone wishing to make general public comment who is attending remotely, please raise your hand in the Zoom application. If you are present in the town room and have not signed up with the council clerk, please do so now. Residents are welcome to make public comments on matters within the jurisdiction of the town council. The council will not engage in a dialogue or comment on a matter raised during general public comment. Public comments are not reflective of the opinions of the town council. The First Amendment broadly protects individual rights to address the government, to speak, and to express themselves, including their right to say hateful and offensive things. I am generally unable to shut those commenters down under the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution unless their level of speech falls within an exception articulated by the courts, such as fighting words, true threats to a particular individual, harassment of a particular individual, or incitement of imminent lawless activity. If a question exists as to whether a particular speaker is engaging in unprotected speech, I must defer to the principle of freedom of speech. There are no hands raised at this time on Zoom of people who wish to make public comment. How many people in the town room have signed up for public comment?
9.
9. Each commenter will have 2.5 minutes to make their public comments. And we do now have one person on Zoom that has signed up. But we will start with the commenters that have signed up in the room.
Maria Kopicki.
Maria, please come on up, state your name and where you live, and make your comment.
Thank you. Maria Kopicki, South Amherst. I won't take up much of your time. The Jones CPA application is rife with problems. Its eligibility is sketchy at best, and the process that brought it forward failed to adequately address concerns about supplanting and historic preservation requirements for CPA. It was also far from impartial, with several members of committees who failed to recuse themselves from discussion and decisions despite their active participation in the very capital campaign that brought the application. 2 contrasting legal opinions have been received, and both the Department of Revenue and the Community Preservation Coalition have described the issue of supplanting as a gray area. Those are as strong opinions against a municipal application as you will ever hear from state agencies. And the executive director of the Community Preservation Coalition went even further, explaining that he does not support the application because it violates the spirit of this funding program. So now it's down to you. All we are asking is that you keep your word to not give any more of our tax money to this project and insist that the project's capital campaign keep its word to seek their share of money from federal, state, and private sources. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're taking money out of our left pocket or our right pocket. It's all our money as taxpayers. Each time this project has come to the town to bail it out, you reassured us, your constituents, that the MOUs protect us against further impact to us. It's time for you to show us that those were not empty promises that you had no intention of actually keeping. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming tonight, Maria. Laura Yvonne Steinman, please unmute yourself, state your name and where you live, and make your comment.
Hi, my name is Laura Yvonne Steinman. I'm coming from Florence, Massachusetts. I just wanted to make sure, is this for general public comment right now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. You all moved it up in the agenda. I'm here tonight virtually again to just remind everyone that the Amherst School Committee has voted for scenario number 2 that restores specialist positions, interventionists, and other special ed positions. And as an art educator, and just an educator in Amherst Public School right now, I would just highly recommend listening to the Amherst School Committee in what that they have proposed. They've really listened to the families and the teachers on what's really needed to advocate to have really, really good schools and meet the needs for everyone. So again, this is please vote to restore the budget and vote for scenario 2. Thanks so much.
Thank you for coming tonight, Laura. Athena?
Josh Gatto.
Josh, please come on up. Have a seat, state your name and where you live, and make your comment.
Hi, so some of you might recognize me more as the guy that has been coming and sitting in on a lot of these meetings for the past like 7 or 8 months, but I'm Josh Gatto. I'm a resident of District 4, as well as an undergraduate student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, where I also have the opportunity to serve as our Secretary of External Affairs for the Undergraduate Student Government Association. With that, I've brought several of my colleagues here today just to discuss our appreciation for the town and our desire for further collaboration with you all. We all really love Amherst and its community, and we feel really lucky to be part of that. But we feel that there are more ways we could be getting students involved. So we're hopeful that in the coming years, we're able to foster stronger relationships between students and residents, creating opportunities to engage more with our local school systems and find some common ground in all the ongoing housing issues that we all face within this community. So just on behalf of all of us at SGA, I'd like to thank you for your time, and we look forward to staying in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh, for coming tonight and for the rest of the SGA students that are here tonight. Athena?
There's another person online who has a hand up. Did you
Oh,
want to call on? them?
I will go to him. I missed it. Thank you. Jason Dorney, please unmute yourself, state your name and where you live, and make your comment.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I'm Jason Dorning, live in East Amherst. I want to comment. I know that you all will be chatting about the closure of Hampshire College later on, but I wanted to make a comment now. The closure of Hampshire College is a great loss all around, and certainly feel for all the students and faculty and staff that work there. But I want to make sure that whatever discussions, whatever happens, we recognize that this is a potential once in a lifetime opportunity that we have for a number of issues that the town faces with the fiscal issues we face and with the housing issues we face and the lack of large amounts of buildable space. Hampshire offers a lot of land and a lot of opportunity. And I just would like to make sure that whatever happens there, that the town has a good plan for any area that we might be able to influence through zoning to build more housing in that area, build taxable housing in the area of all types, whether it be single family homes, senior age restricted, income restricted, affordable housing through Valley CDC or any other partners that we can build with. I just want to make sure that we are looking at the opportunity as a whole and that we are not going to try to make a one-use zoning restriction there, try to build single-family detached homes on quarter-acre lots. We have a lot of opportunity down there, and I really want to make sure that we are looking at all of the possibilities to address housing for all types of people, not just students, not just seniors, not just single-family detached homes. So I really hope that we take that into consideration when the opportunity comes up for zoning, if it comes up. I know it's somewhat premature. There's still a lot that is undecided or unknown about what's going to happen, but I want to make sure that I voice that opinion to everybody. I appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason, for coming tonight. Athena?
Jess Valatka.
Jess, please come on up, state your name and where you live, and make your comment.
Hello, my name is Jess Valatka. I am a resident of District 4, a student at UMass Amherst, and I currently serve as a senator in the Undergraduate Student Government Association. I'm sure you have discussed at length, and for a long time, the issues for housing for residents and students alike, and the various interests between the town and the university. We are increasingly eager to listen to the concerns of the town of Amherst, to better understand the struggles that residents have been facing and will be facing beyond our time here. I'm here to ask for opportunities to build on each other's experience, knowledge, and efforts to refine and implement plans for more affordable housing for both students and residents. The Student Government Association would love to be an active participant within the Amherst community and work with the town to create opportunities for building relationships with residents. We ask this in hopes of better aligning our interests and strengthening lines of communication for future efforts. Thank you for your time and dedication. Thank you for your time and dedication.
Thank you for coming tonight, Jess.
Charles Walker Hoover.
Charles, please come on up, state your name and where you live, and make your comment.
Hey y'all,
Hey.
I'm Charles Walker Hoover, senior here at UMass, studying Afro-American Studies and History. And kind of disappointed in myself that this is my first time here as a senior. I feel like if I had known more or had any more prior information, I'd be at most of the meetings because I feel like this is where government starts, locally. But no, recently I attended the Amherst Local Village Festival. I was a volunteer for that and was pretty happy, to see the turnout from the town. Showed up in waves. I feel like students maybe did not get enough information that was happening. So maybe we got to get on social media, Instagram, do something to spread visibility for an event like that. And I thought it was a success all around though, because you got to see people's cultures and really recognize that Amherst is a place for this collision of cultures. And I also want to shout out Ancestral Bridges. They do great work here. They preserve Black history in Amherst. And not too many places do that, so shout out to that. And then I also just would want to know, like, how can the UMass Amherst student government be a better partner with the town, for a wide range of issues? I sponsored a resolution in the SGA to increase the firefighting staff and supporting them. Just want to know how that's going. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's good to see y'all. Shout out Councilor Walker. Good friend. Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Thank you for coming tonight, Charles.
Sharon Juanita Taki?
Sharon. Come on up, state your name, where you live, and make your comment.
Hi, I'm not Sharon, but Sharon couldn't be here, so I will be speaking on her behalf.
Could you state your name too, if you're
My name
willing?
is Joshua Spersky, and I'm also in the SGA.
Excellent, thank you.
Hello, my name is Sharon Juanita Taki. I'm a resident of District 4 and also a sophomore attending the University of Massachusetts Amherst, studying legal studies and economics. I currently serve as a senator in the Undergraduate Student Government Association, and I'm appreciative for the opportunity to speak. As a student at UMass Amherst, the rising costs of housing affect the large majority of students who choose to attend this university due to the sheer number of students. I've heard multiple personal accounts of students who have had to pause their studies as a result of unaffordable housing costs. I'm here to ask for the support of the town in collaborating with the UMass Amherst student leaders, administrators, and developers to create more affordable housing, which would allow us to become a part of the vibrant community here in Amherst while pursuing an undergraduate education. Thanks.
Thank you for coming, Joshua, on behalf of Sharon.
Charlotte Ribe? Is that right?
Charlotte,
Reeve, sorry, thanks.
please come on up, state your name and where you live, and make your comment, Charlotte.
Everyone, my name is Charlotte Reeb. I am a resident of District 5 and a senior at UMass Amherst studying English and journalism. I serve as a senator and clerk of the Student Government Association, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you all tonight. I would like to bring your attention to the student perspective on the no more than 4 leases in Amherst. As rent prices continue to rise and housing remains a general issue for students and residents alike, students feel even with 4 contributors, the price they're having to pay is getting out of control. The thing is also, as a deterrent from student housing simply outpricing residents by having no restrictions on leases, it still falls short as very few families can still pay into those prices with only 1 to 2 people splitting it. And we see family rates continue to fall every year, which isn't ideal for either of us. Additionally, as a deterrent of noise and trash, we would be interested in seeing how those numbers have changed since the implementation of the 4-person lease policies. That being said, we understand that regulation is of course necessary, and we are simply hoping to find a solution that is capable of providing for students and families alike. This is simply how some students are feeling about the ordinance and not our express opinion of what needs to change. However, we do think that it is vital to clearly communicate where many students feel this ordinance is failing short of what it set out to do, and we would love to hear further opinions from residents in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming tonight, Charlotte.
Cass Mello.
Cass, please come on up, state your name, where you live, and make your comment.
Hello. My name is Cass, and I'm a resident of District 4, student at UMass Amherst, studying education and English, and I'm also the head of academics for the SGA, Student Government Association at UMass. In my free time, I volunteer for local organizations, including the Jones Library, where I tutor and teach English to older Amherst residents. When I'm not at college, I live by a public state university and a few private schools in central Massachusetts. I feel I have a strong understanding of what it means to have students all over your community. I would also love to be part of efforts to improve these dynamics, but I understand it's difficult to figure out what we can do. Instead of focusing on what students often demand from the town, I'd really like to learn and take inspiration from JFK and ask, what can we do for Amherst? At the same time, I think that there's a broader ways that students can contribute by supporting local businesses, collaborating on sustainability initiatives like waste reduction, energy use, and working together to address shared concerns around safety, basic needs, transportation, and more, and impact both residents and students. I'm interested in building stronger academic partnerships between the college and the town, maybe through expanding tutoring and mentorship programs, connecting student coursework and projects to needs of the community, and creating internships or learning opportunities within town departments here. I hope we can create student involvement in the community that's thoughtful, respectful, and mutually beneficial. My hope is to create a more reciprocal relationship where students not only learn from Amherst, but also actively can contribute to its academic, social, and civic life. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight, Cass.
Michael Borowski.
Michael, please come on up, state your name, where you live, and make your comment.
Hello, my name is Michael Borowski. If you can guess, I'm also a member of the UMass Amherst Student Government Association and a resident of District 4. I am the president and have had the privilege to serve for the past year and will continue to the next. I am wrapping up our public comments for the night, and we'd just like to thank you all for listening to us, and thank you to Josh Gatto, who arranged this visit. It's been a very insightful experience for all of us. UMass Amherst wouldn't be UMass without Amherst, and as someone whose job it is to keep a pulse on our campus community, this town and everything it does for our students and the opportunities it provides are very much appreciated. And at UMass, we have the privilege of being recognized as a co-governing body on campus. So I like to think that we are on the precipice of some fantastic collaboration. And as I think students and residents of this town may have many common goals. We all need food and housing and a safe place to be. I think John Locke talked about that. So to you all and anyone else in this room or the Amherst government, if there's anything we can do, whether it is engagement, feedback, or getting information to or from the student body, we are always on hand and would be very happy to volunteer those services. I would like to echo some of the comments, suggestions, and concerns of my peers raised today, but in any way we can offer suggestions as to the solutions of these, we would love to. Thank you again for listening to us tonight, and we would be happy to remain in touch.
Thank you for coming tonight. And again, thank you to the SGA senators and officers for coming. For information purposes, we tend to take our break in about an hour around 8 o'clock. So if you can stay through that, I'm sure a number of counselors would love to talk with you, but it's at 8 o'clock or so we take it. Next.
Emily Landeck.
Emily, please come on up, state your name and where you live and make your comment.
Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Landeck. I actually live in Greenfield, but I'm currently an employee of Hampshire College. And I am aware you're discussing this later today. I'm the director of the farm programs. And I felt that it was important to come, as I know that this is on your agenda, to think about what happens with Hampshire. That farmland that we currently operate our farm on is about 80 acres on that property. And as someone who has farmed in the valley for over 15 years at this point, I see it's very important to conserve that land as farmland. There's not a ton of information as to what's happening. There's a lot that's up in the air, and I'm very aware of that. I don't actually even know what the town of Amherst is going to have impact on. But I felt that it was really important to put it out as something that feels really important. I hear the desire to develop. I understand the need for housing. And I also know that farmland is extremely important and it's important to preserve that. And that farmland has no protections on it as of right now. And I do believe that the town of Amherst could have some impact. Briefly, one of our potential proposals that we are putting together as the staff of the farm right now is actually the idea of creating a community farm there. I do believe that Amherst could have a lot of impact in the continuation of a farm operating on that land, and plan to bring a further proposal, but I wanted to put it in your guys' ears as an understanding of a possible way to continue that land and keep that land in farmland going forward, with the potential of potentially collaborating with or rematriating actually to some of the Hassanamisco. So we have a lot of things in the works. There's a lot that's up in the air, as we all know, but I wanted to put it on your radar as feels really important to preserve at least some of that land of Hampshire as farmland. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming, Emily, and talking about your work at the Hampshire Farm.
Chris Spinozzi.
Chris, please come on up, state your name, where you live, and make your comment.
Hello, my name is Chris Spinozzi and I live in Northampton, Massachusetts, but I'm an educator here in the.
Can you speak a little closer to
Sorry.
the mic? Thank you.
Is this better? Should I repeat what I said or? Okay, so my name is Chris Spinozzi. I live in Northampton, Massachusetts, and I am an educator in the Amherst Pelham Regional School District. And I just wanted to come and make a statement of solidarity with my fellow APEA members and just reaffirm the school committee has voted on scenario number 2 that would restore essential positions. I don't know, I have a lot of opinions, but not a lot of time. What I will say is that, thinking about cutting any further, thinking about, colleagues who I'm potentially not going to see next year or, have the privilege to work with, is really difficult to get my head around. So again, I'll keep it brief. I just want to affirm my solidarity and again, encourage you to consider scenario 2 that restores essential positions voted on by the school committee. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for coming tonight, Chris. Athena?
Pete Nolan.
Pete, come on up, state your name, where you live, and make your comment.
Hi, I'm Dr. Pete Nolan, Amherst resident, and I work at Wildwood. I'm a special ed teacher, 2nd grade co-teacher. And I'll paraphrase some of this, but it's a document that's been signed by 8 of the special education teachers at Wildwood and Fort River to the town council. We special education teachers working at Wildwood and Fort River elementary schools write to you in opposition to the proposed budget cuts to special education next year. The current proposal to cut 20% full-time special education teachers and additional paraeducator support will be devastating to our students, their families, teachers, administrators, and district as a whole. Fewer teachers for our most at-risk students means unmanageable caseloads, less effective delivery of services, and increased scrutiny from regulatory agencies like DESE. So we know there's 2 schools coming together. That's twice as many kids in one school, but the current idea is that there's going to be 6 teachers providing services for all those kids. For me, I currently have 8 students on my caseload, which might not sound like a lot. I'll explain what that means. But that's going to be doubled next year. So most, if not all of our students with IEPs have dyslexia or other learning disabilities that make learning to read especially challenging. Currently, 1 in 5 students at the 2nd grade level in Amherst requires direct instruction and the rules of spelling and phonics in order to learn to read. This type of intervention is time consuming and requires small groupings of students in order to be effective. So with the huge increase in the number of students we will be serving next year, it will be challenging, if not impossible, to provide effective instruction to our students who learn to read differently than their peers. The proposed budget cuts mean that small group instruction size will likely be at least 6 students, if not more. In our collective experience, small group size is the main factor in a teacher's ability to deliver quality instruction and the student's ability to make effective progress. Many special education students require specialized instruction in reading, math, and writing, and modifications to classroom instruction to regulate behavioral and attention issues. In our experience, we can effectively teach a group of up to 3 or 4 students when one student is dysregulated. The irregular schedule and language constraints of the Common on Taste program further complicate scheduling for special education teachers. With such an unrealistically
Please
large.
wrap up.
Okay, well, I will just say, we need more money. And these are the people that signed this document: Jeff Kalman, MED, me, Pete Nolan, Soleil Sonata, Anthony Principe, Sarah Hickman, Kristen Riley, Vera Goodwin Brown, and Pamela Kavanaugh. And these are all special education teachers at Port River and Wildwood. It's the kids that are going to lose out if we stick to this plan. It keeps me up at night. It really does. I'm not excited about.
You need to wrap up. I hate doing that to you, but we have a time limit. Thank you for coming, Pete, on behalf of yourself and the other 7 or 8 teachers that signed that letter. Athena?
That was the last name on the list.
Thank you. With no other names on the list, we will move on from general public comment to the consent agenda. The following items were selected because they were considered to be routine and it was reasonable to expect they would pass with no controversy. To remove an item from the consent agenda for discussion later in the meeting, ask that it be removed when the president lists the consent agenda items. For the request to remove an item from the consent agenda does not require a second. A few things about this agenda before I read it. It has changed since it was published on Tuesday because there is an item not anticipated that is on the agenda, an item under the not anticipated items. We've moved it up to 6A, which is a resolution honoring Amherst Media's 50th anniversary. We have put that motion and the motion that requires a waiver of the rules to pass it tonight or vote on it tonight on the consent. So that is one thing about consent. It has additional items on it. I sent an email today about that. The clean energy item on consent is 8B, is a referral for hearing on consent, but there will be a short presentation and some time for questions when we get to that item on the agenda. And the CPA items on consent, 8D, 1 and 3, as well as a motion to divide. It is all projects but the Jones project on consent. Just to be clear, as I read all of these, it can be a little confusing. The Jones project vote is not on consent. It will come up in the moved and voted when we get to that item on the agenda. So now I'm going to read the consent items, and after I do, I'll see if anyone wants to remove anything. The motion would be, if nothing is removed, to move the following items in the printed motions thereunder and approve those items as a single unit. Item 6A, waiver of Town Council Rules of Procedure, Rule 8.6 for Agenda Item 6A. Item 6A, adoption of resolution honoring Amherst Media's 50th anniversary. 8A, approval of the Eversource petition on installation of underground conduit at College Street and Dickinson Street intersection. 8B, referral of proposed zoning amendment Article 18 Clean Energy Infrastructure and associated amendments. 8C, approval of Amherst Pelham Regional School District borrowing order $497,000 for building repairs and equipment. 8D, division of restoration and preservation of the Jones Library from Council Order FY 2707A to be voted separately. 8D1, approval of Council Order FY 2707A1. An order appropriating the FY 27 Community Preservation Act budget as required under MGL Chapter 44B. Item 8D3, approval of Council Order FY 2708A, an order appropriating and authorizing debt for the construction of the War Memorial Bathhouse under open space and recreation. 8F, approval of proposed amendment to Town Council Rules of Procedure, Rule 8.2C. 9A 1 to 2, approval of the town manager appointments to the Board of Health and Community Safety and Social Justice Committee. 11A, approval of minutes, the April 6, 2026 regular meeting and public forum on appropriations outside of the budget. Are there any hands regarding removal of anything from consent? Councilor Kano Martin.
Yes, I would like to remove item 8F, please.
Okay, 8F is removed. Any other hands requesting removal? Seeing none, is there a second to the motion?
Second, Reesmer.
Thank you. We will move on to a vote. We start with Andy Churchill,
Aye.
Anna Devlin Gauthier,
Aye.
Lynn Griesemer,
Aye.
Mandy Jo Haneke is an aye, Counselor Lord.
I believe I'm abstaining because recusing for the Goodwin thing is in this consent, yes?
That's fine. We will mark you as abstain. Sam McLeod,
Aye.
Pam Rooney,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
Yes.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Counselor Brevik,
Yes.
and Counselor Kano Martin.
Yes.
That is unanimous, 12-0 with one abstention. We will move on to resolutions and proclamations. This is an item that we're moving it up to read the now therefore clause. Technically, it was under items not anticipated. It was brought to me today. Counselor Walker, would you like to read?
Yes, thank you. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Amherst Town Council expresses its deepest gratitude and highest commendation to Amherst Media for 50 years of exceptional service to our community and celebrates its golden anniversary as a testament to what can be achieved when a community invests in its own voice. And be it further resolved that the Town Council calls upon the residents of Amherst to recognize and celebrate the vital role that Amherst Media plays in our civic life, to support its continued mission and to take full advantage of the extraordinary resources it represents, and that a copy of this resolution be presented to the Executive Director and the Board of Directors of Amherst Media as a token of the town's enduring appreciation and pride.
Thank you. We will be moving on to presentations and discussions. We start with a zoning introduction that I believe is being given by our Planning and Economic Development Director, Jeff Bagg, and I think, is Rob also giving it, or is it just Jeff? It's our building commissioner, or is it just Jeff?
I think it was just going to be me tonight.
Okay, and you'll give a short presentation, and then I have allotted 20 minutes for this item today. We are under trying to get this meeting done by like 11, if possible. So if there are questions after that 20 minutes goes, we will take them down, email them to Paul, myself, and we'll get them to Jeff and get them answered, okay? Jeff.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. This is a sort of an overview of zoning. This is described as 101. And before I get into the slides, I have 5 other slides. Just to say it's kind of described as 101 because zoning has many different elements and there's different ways that zoning can be used to do certain things. So this is really an overview, kind of to set the stage for the town council to talk about first the clean energy bylaw infrastructure. And then I do think a little bit later tonight, at some level of discussion about Hampshire, there are 2 different things in play here. So I'll get to the slide. So what is zoning? Zoning regulates the use and development of land, and it includes where different uses can occur, and it establishes things like dimensional requirements and other standards. And a lot of this is based on location or neighborhood or a specific intent. So tonight, you'll hear about the clean energy bylaw as sort of an example of a specific intent. The way it works overall is uses are separated into distinct categories. And if uses are not prohibited, the building commissioner is required to put every use into a category to which it's most similar. Uses are regulated by what we are calling a permit granting authority or a special permit granting authority. And these include the planning board, which deals with site plan review, which is a type of approval, the ZBA, so it's Zoning Board of Appeals, and they primarily work with what's called a special permit. There are a couple other examples. As of right is a use that is eligible to proceed with just a building permit. So each of these, groups can be called those authorities. Then, taking the whole town and dividing it up into a map, there's a zoning map, and we have a bunch of different districts that are intended to kind of capture the character of certain areas, and that's been developed over many, many decades, grouped broadly into residential, business, industrial, and other special districts. So again, this is the 101 class. So there's a lot of districts, and each one has a different definition and a purpose, but I'm not going to get into that tonight. Dimensional regulations is another important element. And this is things where it dictates where a building can get built on a property. So it's setback. They dictate how tall a building can be, how many stories. Lot coverage is the amount of a parcel that can be covered by something, let's say a building. And then it does talk about residential density or other standards, and those are based again on the location, neighborhood, or specific intent. So overview in terms of some process, which the group will hear tonight, and then move through. Zoning amendments can be initiated by the following. This is a summary. So this intends to capture a summary of all the ways, but it is a technical process. There's a guide. There's specific information available for each of these. But a town councilor, citizen petition, town committees, and the town manager or designee are all eligible, groups who can bring a zoning amendment. And once received by town council, such as tonight, it sets forth a sort of a legally mandated process, and there are required steps and timelines. And again, because we're short on time, each zoning amendment should allow the council to get familiar with some of these. But in terms of overview, there's a public hearing. The public hearing must be held. Each the planning board and the CRC must hold a public hearing. And through recent discussions, we're trying to work towards having joint public hearings, especially for example, the clean energy bylaw. The planning board must vote and submit a recommendation to the CRC. And then from there, the CRC goes to another committee for review. And then if that's recommended, the town council then holds a final public hearing. This is a distilled version of what the town has posted as a flow chart. Again, this is an abbreviated summary, so there are some technical details that are not shown here. But tonight, for example, with the clean energy, the town council receives and refers the zoning bylaw amendment to both the CRC and the planning board. And each entity is required to hold a public hearing. I think in this proposal for clean energy, the goal is to have a joint public hearing to share information together, make it a little bit easier for members of the public to follow that part of the process. And when that concludes, the planning board reports to CRC, CRC votes to GOL, and then the town council holds another public hearing. So it's really two distinct steps in this process. Then just briefly, and this is all information that's available online, but in terms of the charge for CRC, it is a subcommittee of the town council, and it has a requirement to make recommendations on planning, zoning, or land use matters, housing and homelessness, community sustainability initiatives, master plan, local economy, and appointments of these boards and committees, planning board and ZBA. And then the planning board statutorily is required to study the needs of the community and prepares plans that involve land use. And so the planning board can propose amendments to the zoning bylaws we talked about. It can approve subdivisions, site plan review, special permits for a wide range of uses. So that's actually projects. And it is charged under this MGL to develop the master plan and advises town council on all other matters. So the last thing for this evening in terms of the 101, a couple important notes. As we move forward in this process, the materials, should be available online for review by members of the public. So it's really helpful in this day and age to have the materials posted. Once it's legally advertised at the beginning of the process, the proposed amendment is technically in effect. This is important for construction projects that have to wait, and typically they have to wait until a process for a zoning amendment is complete to reduce the potential, risks for them if a zoning amendment is not adopted. that's a fine point. There's a lot of legal elements within zoning, but that was something I just wanted to mention. Staff, the planning department, the building commissioner, and others provide guidance to the planning board, CRC, and town council during the process, and then the town attorney will review the zoning amendment that has been recommended to GOL. And then the final step in the process is that zoning amendments are subject to review by the state's attorney general's office. And then the last couple notes I just wanted to mention is it's newer. State law has changed to say that certain housing related amendments require only a majority vote. Other zoning amendments require a supermajority, and some amendments may only change the official map while others change the text. And the text of the bylaw is updated after every change. So this is perhaps a little bit of a crash course. Maybe some people are aware, but we wanted to kind of set the stage for some of the most important key elements for zoning as you move into the clean energy discussion tonight.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Jeff? Kathy?
It's not really a question, it's a comment. That was extremely clear, and it would be great if you could post the charts, because I think we could use them periodically when we do district meetings, making the arcaneness of zoning clearer would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn?
There was one statement in your chart about once a notice has been filed, that anything that is going on is subject to that. However, it is my understanding that some items are grandfathered through so that they are not in fact subject to the potential of a change in the bylaw. Could you please address that?
Jeff?
I'll try. Probably falls into the next level up in terms of the discussion, but yeah, there are some ways that zoning can be frozen, I guess, and sometimes that is a tool that people use when they hear about a zoning amendment coming. They could take certain steps to freeze the zoning for a property. Lynn, I don't know if that's what you're referring to. Something like this clean energy bylaw is what I was intending to speak to, which is that once this is legally advertised, so after the council recommends this and it's established for public hearing, at that point, if you were a solar developer, for example, you are technically have to abide by that new regulation. The risk is that this could take several months, and so a developer is probably not going to proceed too far with a project while there's a pending zoning amendment discussion. So this is something that we can follow up on if that was not a clear answer.
I specifically am speaking to the project on Sunderland Road that includes solar development. And I've always understood that that's grandfathered and would not be subject to any law change, any change in bylaw.
Yeah, I think for any specific question, like specific example of a project, I might want to take some time to research that.
I don't mean Sunderland, I mean Shrewsbury Road. Thank you. Shrewsbury Road.
Any other comments or questions from counselors? For zoning 101, Jeff, that must have been extremely clear and quick. So I thank you for that. I'm sure as we go through this process multiple times this year, there will be other questions. So I appreciate that quick overview, and I appreciate the council for keeping it quick. We will move on to the Hampshire College update. Paul.
Thank you. So I'm going to be talk as quickly as I can, but there's a lot to cover here. So Hampshire College is closing, and I think at a certain point in this presentation, you'll be able to use your newly learned zoning knowledge to engage with Jeff on some of this. This is just to give you a broad overview about what's going on with Hampshire, what we know. I want to say that this is information as I know it. It can be changed. The college is making decisions in real time that's adjusting things all the way. I want to go back a little bit. In 2019, in January, I received a phone call from the president of Hampshire College, the then president, Mim Nelson, stating that the college was not going to accept a class that year.
And my initial response was, that is going to communicate to everyone that you're closing the college. And she said, that's not our intent. But the Hampshire College students and faculty and alums rebelled against the decision. Ultimately, the trustees changed, and a robust fundraising effort was led by Ken Burns, and the college continued to operate. But the fundamental challenges of the college remained. The fundraising was actually going quite well based on the target that they had established. Their second strategy was to monetize the land. They recognized that they owned hundreds of acres of land in both Hadley and in Amherst, and that they intended to monetize that as best they can. And that was the initial project was what's called the Atkins site. And the third was to increase enrollment. Can go to the next slide. So, and two things happened. One was the land on Atkins did not go get sold based on the failure of the developer to get a proposal that was passed by the town. And second, their enrollment did not achieve the goals that they had wanted to. And they were also facing a demographic cliff, which we all know about, that there are just fewer college students out there. And for Hampshire in particular, fewer college students choosing their education. So on April 12th, just over 2 weeks ago, the Board of Trustees voted to close Hampshire College. 13 days ago, they made the announcement to the community that they were closing. So next slide. So this is a timeline of what they said they were at the time were going to do. That they voted on the 12th. They notified the students and everybody on the 14th. They indicated that there would be a graduation for the class on May 15th. They would close the dormitories on May 17th. The Early Learning Center would cease operations on the June 2nd. And they've given notice to 199 employees that they would be terminated as of June 15th. Their intent was to have some students on campus to do the teach out that would go through the end of December, and that they would honor the contracts that they had signed for the Red Barn through the calendar year. Next slide. So the Massachusetts has gone through some closures of colleges, and it's been really rough. And so they've established certain guidelines for what you have to do when you close a college. And I will give the Boston Globe recently commended Hampshire for the way that they're going about it. It doesn't mean that they're going about it without creating a lot of pain. There is pain when you close down a major institution like this for the students, for the faculty, for the community. So this is, I sort of said this on earlier, but they will maintain the buildings that they need for the fall. They're going to try to close as many buildings as they can because they're expensive to maintain. They're going to maintain the Red Barn and some administrative buildings. Their intent is to sell or transfer the real estate in the buildings that they own. They will transfer the student transcripts and records to the University of Massachusetts, which is a pre-existing relationship they had. And then they will start to sell everything they own, which includes arts, books, farm animals, everything that is owned by the college. This is the responsibility of the Board of Trustees. They are the stewards of the land and the holdings of the college. Next slide. So for the students, there are 667 students. 157 will graduate in May. And these other numbers are fluid. If you know at Hampshire, I'm an alum, so I know the language. Division 1 is your freshman year. Division 2 are like your junior, seniors, and Division 3 is your sort of capstone project year. And people can be in Division 2 for 2 years or more. So their initial goal was to allow people to finish out their Division 3 and get their Hampshire College degree by the end of 2026. That has changed recently, so I think the college is making some adjustments to that. Another thing that they had to do was to have transfer pathways. These are agreements with partner institutions that would prioritize Hampshire students and create a pathway after the enrollment period for certain colleges. They have agreements with these colleges, It doesn't mean you get automatically accepted. It means that they will give you an answer and as quickly as they can, so you know if you're going to get into these institutions or not. For the students, they're a valuable commodity, if you want to look at it that way. There's a lot of colleges that are desperate to have students enroll. Hampshire College actually did this with New College. When it closed, they recruited students from New College. And so Hampshire College is also getting, and the students at Hampshire College are getting recruited by other institutions who are looking for enrollment to beef up their college. Next slide. For the employees, they, as I mentioned, 269 employees are losing their jobs. 55 of them, which is the preponderance of all the communities, they live in Amherst. They live throughout the valley. They live in every community pretty much in the Pioneer Valley. They intend to do employee reductions in waves, with most ending on June 15th. They will hold on to some employees through the end of the calendar year. Mass Hire, which is a state agency, has been on campus, or will be on campus tomorrow, I believe, and on May 18th to help employees who are looking for services, support, guidelines on, support for doing resumes, getting health insurance, all those types of things. So in terms of the land, so Hampshire owns an enormous amount of land in our town, 692 acres in Amherst, specifically another 200 acres in Hadley, Hadley is mostly a solar farm and a regular farm. 600, just over 600 of those acres are tax exempt, and it means they're on the campus, and we'll show you a map of that shortly. 78 acres are taxed. That means they're not used for educational purposes. That's their holdings. The land is just extraordinarily beautiful, but it includes farmland, trails, wetlands, open space, historic buildings, what they call star buildings, like the Kern Center, which is one of the 2 living buildings in Amherst, and there are only 23, I think, in the world. We own 2 of them. These are not just net zero buildings. These are buildings that fully support themselves. The Hampshire College Farm is iconic. The Red Barn is used by many people. The Multi-Sports Center has a tennis club in it and has pickleball courts and is used by a broad range of the community. And the Early Learning Center is also important. We'll talk about the core campus parcels. And then the other land they own on the south side of West Bay Road, and they own the east side of West Street. And we'll show those on the map. And they also own the President's House, which is basically on the South Amherst Common. Most of the land that they own, especially in the 600 acres, is in the education district, which means you only allow uses that are affiliated with higher education. Next slide. So can I use this? Show. I just want show. Okay. So I'm going to try and orient you to where everything is. So first off, we will look at Atkins Market, which is right here. This is West Street coming into Amherst. Amherst is up this way. This is West Street. The driveway into Hampshire is right here. And then this is the core campus right around here. This is Enfield House, Greenwich House, Prescott House. This is the Longsworth Art Village, Merrill House, and Dakin House. And just a side note, the three dorms, Enfield, Greenwich, and Prescott are all named. You would hope they would be named after donors, but they're not, because they never got donors. They're named after the 3 towns that were submerged when the Quabbin Reservoir was created. The Kern Center is around here. The Robert Crown Center, which is where they have their swimming pool, a gorgeous swimming pool, the library, the science center, academic buildings, things like that. This is the solar array that is owned by the college, one of the first solar arrays, and it actually powers the campus. The Yiddish Book Center owns its own land here. The Eric Carle Museum owns its own land here, but I should note that neither of them have access except through Hampshire College property. And we'll talk about that in a second. The Early Learning Center is here. The multi-sports facility is here. These are the tennis courts that also get converted into pickleball courts. This is the Red Barn. I'm not really saying this easily, but I think that Hitchcock Center here, and then the Hampshire Farms here. These are holdings that they had, and some of this land on this side was looked at about 10 or 12 years ago. It was called Viridian Village, and Dave Zelbeck could probably point it out to you exactly. And this is one of the parcels that they started to look at in advance prior to them announcing their closures. Like maybe this is a parcel we could utilize, and then they also looked at a parcel up here on West Bay Road as perhaps a parcel they could manage. Their facilities department is down here. This is Hadley, and they own a bunch of land here. They own land here. A lot of this is wet and can't be developed. This parcel here is what they call the cornfield. It's possibly a developable site right on West Street. These are the two rotaries, right? The two roundabouts. So I think that gives you a sense of they own a lot of land. Much of it is wet and it can't be developed. This is the big open space that you see as you drive down West Street. And then their core campus is right here, and they've been trying to protect their core campus. It's also important to note the different parcels of land. These are all different parcels that our staff sort of put together. So it's large parcels that they own. Thank you.
Paul, if I could
Yeah,
I,
Dave, please.
if we go back to the previous slide, that one there. Yeah, I just wanted to point out, and Paul, you were correct. That is the Viridian Village over to the east of that parcel right there is where the proposed Viridian Village was some years ago. And then, you correctly pointed out the town line, the parcels in Hadley, the very large parcel in the lower left is, although the frontage is unprotected, the back land is actually protected in perpetuity with a conservation restriction. So that is a permanent restriction on that property. And again, I think you also mentioned that the farmland in the upper center is some hundreds of acres. And I think an earlier speaker who works at the farm center pointed out some of those soils are certainly prime farmland, but they're also in amongst many wetland and streams that traverse that area. So I think Paul covered most everything else. So I think we can move on.
So this is a close-up of the core buildings of the college. Try to do this again. So not that we have to do it, but again, the Yiddish Book Center here, they own their parking lot here, the solar array here, the Eric Carle Museum here, the Early Learning Center, the multi-sports, and they have this sort of road that goes around. These are the first two dorms. This is the Arts Village, and then on this side is Enfield, the Donuts, which you may have heard of here. And then the Robert Crown Center, which is where the pool is, the Kern Center, and the other two academic buildings. So in terms of we have met with the cultural institutions that first week. As soon as they announced it, we pulled them together along with town staff, with the chamber and the bid, and the college and the university to just share what people's concerns were. And we were really focused on our cultural institutions because they're really important to our community. Eric Carle, as I mentioned, owns their own land, although their access is through the driveway that Hampshire owns. So if Hampshire closes and whoever owns that land closes off the driveway, they are going to have an access issue. And that was their number one concern. The Yiddish Book Center has the same concern. They own about 10 acres. Again, their access is only through Hampshire College driveways. Neither of them have rights to those driveways. They have licenses to use them, but they don't have easements like legal rights. The Yiddish Book Center also uses the Hampshire dorms and the dining halls during the summer for summer programs. And all the institutions use work-study students, many from the college, but not just strictly from the college. The Hitchcock Center is different. They don't own their land. They have a 95-year lease, which they signed about 10 years ago. Again, the access is via Hampshire College. And they also have concerns because they use a lot of Hampshire College land for their educational program. both near their site, but also up beyond the main college. So that's a lot of their education programs are dependent on that. So, and then we also looked at we're just identifying issues here. So the biggest things is the people who are losing their jobs, the visitors who, will not be visiting. An estimate said that those visitors bring up to $4 million into Western Mass every year. And then the spending that is done by the students, the parents, but also the college itself. They buy things from the community. All the time. Atkins gets some business, but they haven't expressed a lot of concern that they recognize having a flourishing campus is to their benefit. Pomeroy Village businesses, again, the same type of thing. Early Learning Center has very serious concerns about not being able to operate, and we can get into that in more detail if you want, especially in also the Bay Road Tennis Club, the Hampshire College Farm, which you've already heard tonight, and then the Red Barn. And then there's also the campus is pretty open to anybody. If you live in Applewood or live in the community, you're welcome to walk on through the campus anytime you want. And people from Applewood do cross the street. They take their morning constitutionals through the campus. So what we did is, again, we brought people together that same week and just to share, email addresses connecting. And so it was a really important meeting. The town departments were there. And the whole point on it was to start to build relationships and start to connect with people. Still more work to be done on that. There's been a lot of activity around with alumni groups, organizing with developers and all kinds of stuff like that going on. So what's the impact on town services? So first, we checked with Fire EMS. Right now, the fire department makes about 120 calls annually to Hampshire. Mostly are smoke alarms. As former Chief Nelson said, Hampshire students don't know how to cook. But all the buildings are, if they're alarmed and sprinklered, then they also have to be maintained. The other concern for the fire department was the proper disposal. When you shut down a chemistry lab, there's a serious protocol for how you do that. And then also, if the early learning center is going to stay open, they want to make sure that that's inspected and safe. For police, they don't make many calls to the campus. The campus isn't interested in that much. They have their own security system. But the concerns for the building department were about security for the buildings, vandalisms, squatters. Private security may be needed. That was a major concern for the nonprofit cultural institutions about having a derelict campus next door. They felt would really hurt them. And then the water and sewer, they're the third largest customer for the town. And they generate approximately $100,000 in water and sewer fees per year. They would not be using that water as much anymore. That would be less. And then our recreation department utilizes the swimming pool. Have been really expanding into using the pool more often because you can use it during the day, which the middle school pool you don't have access to. So a lot of groups have been renting out the pool, and it is really a gorgeous pool that has a big glass door that opens up onto the Holyoke Range. Next slide. So the issues that we have to consider is that the buildings have to be maintained and heated so that the pipes don't freeze. They have to maintain their fire alarm and suppression systems. The buildings have been inspected by the town. They're inspected. They usually inspect in September. And then the security concerns. We also worried about the PVDA. If the college is not open, will they see the need to continue the bus service to that end of town? Possibly, probably they're going to South Hadley, but they would, and it would also, if we're in touch with the PVTA and they're just sort of monitoring the situation. Next slide. So our concerns: look at loss of jobs, the future of childcare, recreational, Red Barn, and the farm, loss of revenue. Sort of just says what I just said. I mean, the biggest thing though is the future ownership and development. Next slide. So what is our role? The town's role, we have two roles, major roles in this. One is regulatory, which means the power of zoning, which means we can tell you, by the council passing a bylaw can regulate how the land is used. And the other is to purchase the land or with a group of people or whatever. So you can take ownership of the land. You can control your destiny either through owning the land or through regulation. So Jeff's going to talk about this.
Thank you.
Right.
I'll try to be brief. Trying to think this through. A couple of key points is that, as Paul mentioned, this has really been, 13 days that we've had, this information available. The ED zoning is an area the zoning district really only allows uses that are associated with higher education. So any of the discussions about providing housing or looking at things that might generate tax revenue sort of leans us in this direction of exploring potential zoning amendments in the future. And then, the third part is just that it's an area that we really have never really explored. It's always been sort of the Hampshire campus, and it's not subject to a lot of detailed information that we have in a lot of other village centers or a lot of areas in town. So the planning around this, it will really incorporate many elements. And the summary here is really just to kind of get everyone oriented as to the direction that we see us potentially going, which is an assessment and understanding of the campus land. We have it's very beneficial. The location of the campus close to, the Atkins Village Center, Eric Carle Yiddish Book Center, and the Hitchcock Center. Those cultural institutions is instrumental in terms of what could potentially happen next. But we're in the process, and we need to continue to start the process of evaluating sort of resource areas, building types, and building condition. We need to better understand the existing infrastructure, and then the relationship to cultural institutions and neighborhoods. So I'm thinking, roadway access, sidewalks, all of the actual things that exist out there. And I think one of the steps that we would undertake and want to undertake is kind of prepare a series of plans and illustrations to understand what does the campus look like when you add these different layers. So what does it look like when you think about resource areas or areas that are regulated? What does it look like when you put all the infrastructure on a map, roadways, et cetera? And that kind of moves us into this next phase of aligning the whole process with Amherst plans and planning principles. And again, this is a summary. I don't have another slide, but I had looked at the master plan, the open space plan, the housing production plan, and each of those documents is really robust and has a lot of goals and a lot of objectives. So we want to then go start this process of aligning any of these thoughts and compare them to those plans. The core principles in Amherst have really been consistent for a very long time. So protect sensitive areas, focus on already developed areas. And that really is these areas that are close to village centers, those that have access to existing infrastructure. So again, just think about the roads, the water service, the sewer, sidewalks, and the buildings that are all there. And so the last principle there is reuse existing buildings. That's a core sentiment of, things in Amherst. And so we need to really better understand what that means if there are buildings that are potentially reusable. I mean, there's some buildings that are brand new. There's some buildings that offer important services. And so start to catalog those. And then finally, prepare some zoning amendments, prepare some discussion pieces, and create a community informed process. And then throughout this, we would be really needing to balance the needs of the community with opportunities for new growth, and then acting swiftly to maximize, opportunities to create new tax revenue. So the biggest unique feature here is that we don't own the property, so we have to move fast to kind of keep pace with the way this will unfold. This is different than, a town-owned property where we have more time to carefully explore things. We have to be careful, strategic, but also fast. So that kind of summarizes where we are 13 days into this.
And a couple just sort of notes on that. We do know that the three cultural institutions have separate services for their water and sewer, so that's not a concern. They don't go through Hampshire, and so I think that's that's a, there's certain thing. And the other thing is that the Red Barn, it only operates as a venue because it's affiliated with the college. The college doesn't exist. It doesn't have a zoning right to exist as a venue unless the zoning gets changed. So, and we're going to, the council president has allowed us to ask for an executive session if you so choose to talk more about the purchase, because that becomes a little more detailed and technical, and also it can be strategic. So it's something that we would like to talk about with the council in executive session, as opposed to, but these are sort of the different things that anybody would think about that you see on the screen. That's at the end of our presentation.
Questions or comments from councilors? Councilor Ryan.
Two questions, Paul, just quickly. The assessment element seems really important, trying to figure out what's there and what can be done. You're going to need funds for that. I assume that we do not have the people on staff that can do the kind of detailed assessment. So that's going to be something that'll need to be funded, and fairly quickly, I assume, given the element of speed. Also, just thought about the early learning center. Is there any possibility, maybe we'll discuss this later, but there are 40 families, I think, and obviously a staff is trained. Is there any way that we can assist or help in trying to preserve that vital community service?
Sure. So, so we have been in touch with the state, with Mass Development and our state legislators about getting funding for this. It's a mini crisis for us that we can't absorb this in our budget. And we believe that and our state legislature have been very willing to work with us to get funding to do it. And you're right, we don't have the staff capacity to do it. We would need an outside firm to come in and really do a robust analysis of the property. The Early Learning Center, I met with them today, and it's a wonderful organization, wonderful service. The colleges, they are employees of the Hampshire College. They're not a nonprofit or anything like that. The building is owned and operated by Hampshire College. If Hampshire College decides to close, I've talked with them about locations that the town-owned buildings that we might be able to help them with, but they would have a hard time relocating without a fiscal steward of some sort who would be their employer. But I have, she has to be connected with the superintendent of schools to see if there's an opportunity there, because the schools do some things. It's childcare slots are really precious, and we need every one of them. So we're really focused on helping them to survive.
Kathy.
Trying to just build on some of, as we go along. You said the college's timeline is at, just understanding the selling off their resources, land. And is that by December when it starts, is a timing question? And then secondly, that if we don't zone before that, the purchasers of that won't know what the value of the land is. So that we would have to make any, aside from maybe we want to buy pieces of it. I understand that, but I'm just saying that it's hard to sell a piece of land if you don't know, are you buying it in half-acre lots, or are you buying it with just these pieces? Am I right? I mean, that we would need to do some of that to facilitate the sales. Then I'll just add one more. If we separate out the outdoor tennis courts from the indoor facility, are there any leasing or temporary occupation through the summer, or is Hampshire going to close it down? And it's the reason I'm asking is Amherst, the town of Amherst doesn't have a lot of tennis courts, and we don't have a lot of outdoor pickleball courts. And that set is both. It's got fabulous, and there's been tennis academies running there. So I'm getting lots of questions on whether the gates will be locked. It's a very short term, it's used all summer and into the fall. So it's separate from the indoor facility. And so you don't have to answer it, but just to have it in your hat that that's a heavily used operation, and people pay a fee. I mean, you pay a small membership fee. So I could see the town charging Amherst residents or non-Amherst residents, to recoup it. So just thinking about, could we keep it open going into the fall?
So I can touch on those. So what the college is, what they're responsible, what the trustees have responsibility for, they owe about $20 million to banks for the mortgage to the land. They owe that money. So they're the fiduciaries for that, for the college. They have to pay that money back, and they have responsibility to the students to teach them out, to get them to where the rules and the laws require them to be. And that's about another, I'm just throwing these numbers out there. They're roughly in the magnitude of about $10 million. So for $30 million, the trustees would feel free and clear. Now, that would be, anybody could come and do that if you've got $30 million sitting in your pocket. But then you own it and you have to maintain the buildings. You have to take care of the buildings. In terms of the tennis courts, I don't know what their plan is. I don't think it's the highest priority of pickleball courts being open or not. I wonder, they were very nervous about being able to have insurance starting July 1. They have gotten insurance. It's very expensive for them to continue to operate for the end of the year. These things, when you're in a situation like this, things become very, very expensive because people don't want to insure you. They worry about the liability that comes with it. They would worry, I'm sure the college would worry about liability on their tennis courts if someone were to get injured, that whoever is the owner of the courts, and it's the owner is the trustees of Hampshire College.
Lynn.
My other question, Paul, was zoning needs to precede it so that
Yeah.
people know what they're buying or not?
Yeah, so right now we know what the zoning is. We had looked at the two particular parcels, the Viridian site and the West Bay Road site, when this was a few months ago when they were trying to monetize their land, trying to help them. The key piece of that was the Atkins Farm piece, because that was going to be an element of them being able to pay off some of their debt and be less beholden to the two major lenders. They were not able to make their payments, and that was the issue. And so the failure of that project and then is moving forward with these other two projects really precipitated the sort of current crisis, where in their audit basically said, you are not a going concern, and that raised it was in their own audit themselves. So they were just not able to produce what they needed to do. And that's where they were. The zoning is the zoning. We know what the zoning is. If we're going to propose something else, and we have talked about this in terms internally with what's protective zoning, what would it be? What could we bring to the town council quickly? Town council can act with great speed. We've seen the council act with great speed on zoning changes, so we appreciate the ability to do that. But we don't have a coherent plan. I think the real thing we'd like to do is a major assessment of the property, a community-driven planning process to decide what we as a town would like that property to be utilized for, and then to pass zoning. But we are also looking at, we're in a defensive posture also to protect ourselves. And, Jeff and Rob are looking at that as well.
Lynn.
Thanks, Paul. And I really want to thank you and your staff for jumping in. You've really, it might be 13 days, but you've obviously put some serious thought into this, and I think that's important. Hampshire College closing is distressing, and no matter what we say, we need to keep in mind the impact of this on the students, the faculty, the staff, and the alumni, including the town manager. But for us, it's a challenge, but it's a once in a lifetime challenge that we need to make sure we look at and carefully plan. We could all sit here and say, gee, I'd like this, gee, I'd like that, gee, I'd like that. But what I liked about Jeff's presentation is the idea that we need to have a plan. And anything we do about zoning should be done with that plan in mind. For us, what it creates is a revenue opportunity. We could solve a lot of problems in Amherst if we do the right thing with the land and the land becomes a revenue generator. But again, the plan needs to look at what is it are you going to put there? What revenue will it generate? And what will be the cost of what we do with that land, depending on what we built, what's built on it or whatever. So I really want to urge that we continue to look at this most carefully. We are in control of zoning, and that's huge and should not be put aside lightly. I also want to urge that we look at this in conjunction with the Wildwood property, It's the same opportunity. It's the same opportunity to move forward with some of our housing goals and other goals for things like seniors and look at revenue generation for things like sewer and infrastructure, et cetera. So thank you for getting started. And I hope that with this excellent staff we have, we can continue to shape our future with this opportunity and not fritter it away.
Thanks. Pam?
Yeah, I'll echo what Lynn just said as well. I have been thinking about the opportunity to, so there's a time lapse between the planning and zoning. And in the meantime, is there an opportunity for this core team to be talking about leasing opportunities? I think of the students in the audience tonight. We've had discussions about what are housing opportunities in Amherst, and without necessarily building new dorms on the UMass campus, there are at least some existing dorms on the Hampshire College campus, and I'm very curious about the opportunity to work with UMass to encourage use of some of those as a way to reduce pressure on Amherst neighborhoods in the meantime, in the short run. I think about, if there is a core, and maybe this falls to the trustees, I don't know, but a core of folks from the town to look at leasing of other facilities, the recreation department uses, and things of that nature. So just starting to generate ideas.
Jennifer?
Thank you. I guess I wanted to ask is, and if this is appropriate to ask in a public session, but one or more banks, I'm assuming, will own the land by June, or maybe they own it now. I mean, has there been any contact between the town and the entities that are gonna, after graduation, own the property?
Well, the college owns the land, and unless the banks foreclose on them, they will continue to own the land. I don't think the banks want to own the land. They're typically, I talked to someone who works at a bank, and these are major national banks, they're not local. They said that banks want their money back. They don't want to own the land, they don't want to manage the land. That's not what their business is. They want their cash back, and they want to lend it to somebody else. And that's sort of their mission, is to get the money that they lent to the college to come back to them.
So I'm picking up on what Kathy said, since the town determines the zoning, the zoning will have a lot to do with the sale of the land. So does that give us more time? I mean, I appreciate what Jeff said, that we don't have a lot of time, but does that give us some time? Because the land is really not attractive to an entity to buy until they know what the zoning is.
Well, the land is attracted to, it may be, college campuses are closing, high school, private school campuses are closing. You saw what happened in Northfield with Northfield Academy. There are certain types of institutions that are attracted to these parcels, but not a lot of private developers because the buildings aren't meant for them. So in the sense that if you want a private developer to be attracted to it, you need to have zoning that looks attractive to whatever you want to see happen on that site. If you only want an educational institution to own it, then you're going to get whatever educational institution is buying. But it can be a church-related institution, it can be a governmental institution, entity buying it. It could be almost anything.
To move fairly quickly.
Well, I think we need to be think very carefully about what do we want to do to protect the town's interest, and then listening to you, what are the town's interests? What do we want to preserve? We could put in, acre zoning there, but I don't think that's what the town really wants. Whatever zoning you put on it is what people are going to respond to. So I think it might be a two-stage thing, short term and then a longer term process.
Andy?
Yeah, I wanted to reinforce what Lynn said about this being sort of a certainly once in a generation opportunity. And, listening to this, it seems like there's sort of two conflicting things. One is we want to plan carefully for what, what the land should be used for based on community needs and values, which takes time. And we want to protect our ability to actually do that planning so that somebody doesn't take it out from under us. And you mentioned the Northfield Mount Hermon example, and that's a real fear of mine, is that, Northfield Mount Hermon put a campus up for sale, and Hobby Lobby bought it, and then they gave it to some Christian association, and the town, it remained tax exempt. The town didn't get any revenue out of it, and they had new neighbors that, were maybe not quite in sync with the values of the town, regardless of what you might think. So it seems to me that we need to figure out what the protective strategy is up front so that we actually have the time to plan. And I'm not, so whether that means putting some sort of overlay on it or some sort of, getting it out of nonprofit use for a while so that we can, so that we don't have that kind of, other educational institutions or non-taxable entities coming in and snapping up, and then we aren't able to control our own future for that land, which is a huge opportunity. So it seems like some sort of zoning approach, if we're not going to find, or some way of working with the state to identify sort of bridge financing so that we could temporarily purchase it and then distribute it to people who, once we do our due diligence, distribute it to, have the ability to offer an RFP out to folks who might want to do what the community wants with it. So I guess we'll discuss more of that in executive session, but I think we need to protect it soon and then take the time, preserve the time to plan so that we do it right.
Sam.
Thank you, Mandy, and thank you for the presentation, Paul. Listening and watching it and knowing the town and knowing Hampshire College, I have to say, despite all the information that was provided, it was very painful for me to listen to the discussion and all the impact of this unbelievable part of our community going back 50 years. I see my childhood there. I see the impact of the town. This, I would call it a trauma for our community, is beyond an economic factor. And just like with the passing of a dear departed loved one, elder, you have to both deal with the trauma and deal with concrete steps as to how to go. And that's what we're wrestling with. I would advocate that we be deliberate in our thoughts and discussions and open in our minds in terms of possibilities. Protecting is certainly desirable, but the possibilities are grand, and it's kind of, I didn't realize they were going to be selling things ASAP. I don't know, but I think it's warranted that we are deliberate and thorough of all the possibilities. It's, the major trauma is for the Hampshire community themselves. The loss, I assume at this point, of an institution, all the staff, all the students, all the history will remain, but and then secondary to that, I would say it's the Amherst community that has the greatest vested interest here. And there's a myriad of possibilities. And I would just think that this council and this town, it's in our interest to really consider. I'm not advocating for anything. I'm just indicating that this is certainly a painful opportunity, but I just think we should think carefully about the implications of whatever we do, because this is huge. This is huge.
Councilor Kendall Martin.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I agree. I mean, this whole situation and this closure is absolutely heartbreaking for the community and really, really upsetting to hear about. I guess, so my question for Paul would be, I know there was an email that was sent to us as counselors about what to do about current students facing homelessness. And I just wondered if there's any updates on, the Hampshire College students who will be homeless and how we can help them. And then I have a similar question, I think, to Pam, who raised, is there a way that we can use those existing dorms for housing in the meantime? And how many students or people can they hold? And it just seems a shame to have these dorms standing empty for any length of time, given the housing crisis in our town. And if there's any way to lease them or keep them occupied and running. And then my other concerns are absolutely preserving the farm. I feel like that's a priority. That's a resource for our town and making sure that we have access to our cultural institutions. And I think that, as we get into this community dialogue, I hope there's ample time for the community to express themselves about how important those institutions are and to make sure that we maintain access to them. Thank you. Paul?
So I've been in touch with the person who wrote, and they, so we've gone back and forth a couple of times, and they're trying to really get I've talked to the president about this as well, of the Hampshire. The person who wrote is doing this on their own time, basically. And they were trying to get a handle on what the need really was. Very, really I announced the need. And it's like, it's such a Hampshire thing. So most dorms, if you were in college, they closed the dorms like the day after graduation, and you were out. They just locked up the doors, and that was the way Hampshire was when I went there. When in 2020 they started loosening that up because there were many students who could not get back home if they were overseas students, and then if you were trans or out in any way, and you felt you weren't safe going home, there wasn't a home for you, they allowed students to stay on campus. And it's one of the things that Hampshire, what I think makes Hampshire really special. I mean, I think I've told you stories about how they responded during the COVID-19 crisis when they volunteered to open up their dorms for those who are unhoused. So I don't know what the real request is yet, but we're in touch with them.
Yeah. Anna.
I really appreciate the Northfield example, and I had to refresh myself on what had happened there. And I appreciated people bringing it up because I think that it's very, very relevant for what Amherst is dealing with now. I want to emphasize the prioritization of the Early Learning Center, especially given the lack of infant care that we have in our community. This is my understanding is that the Early Learning Center is providing care for younger children than many other centers in our community. And it's a huge loss in an area that already is facing massive under existence. Under existence isn't a word. Thank you. So I hope that when we consider community priorities, we are putting that towards the top of our list. I know that there are so many things, but that is a huge one. And when we think about our community needs and our values, supporting those folks, as many folks as we can, and that is certainly a population that will need support. I hope that as we're going through this, we can honor the legacy of Hampshire and move with speed, but also with care and, in the Hampshire way, a lot of innovation in our next steps. I hope that the town will help to build connections. So I'm thinking about the farm. Maybe the town isn't in the place to buy a farm, but hey, the town knows a lot of farmers, right? Like we have navigated purchasing of agricultural land. We know who's looking for agricultural land. I think that a lot of the strength that we can offer there are so many ways, but another area of strength for us is helping to build and make those connections for folks who might be able to help in ways the town cannot. And I hope that we pursue those avenues. And Hampshire really helps to keep Amherst weird in the best way. And I hope that we can hold that up and hold up that innovation as we go through the process that we're about to go through. And I don't think any of us know what it'll look like, but I hope that we can bring innovation and creativity into that process to find the best solution for our community possible.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands at this time, we are going to take our break. We will reconvene I'm going to give ourselves a 10-minute break at 8:25 because we still have a lot to do, but we probably need that break to be able to get through the rest well. Yeah, that's great. So just hear it out.
But I think for UMass students, are the people in this room that insist on that, I would much rather see that is growing from kids on and finding full-time residents. And then yes, when those smart reports say that. That's not great.
We are having some great conversations. I'm going to ask us that we wrap up those conversations in the next few minutes so that we can get started. CPA, Maria, CPA is right after clean energy. Sorry, I didn't want to put it through the mic. Yeah, CPA is right after clean energy, given the thing. So we're going into clean energy now, and then it's CPA, just so you know. It's just like, I know, I figured you're like, when is it showing up in here? And it is right after clean energy, which has already been referred, so I don't know how long it will take to get some questions done and all. Okay, are we? Andy and Counselor Walker, are you guys there? I just want to make sure we have a quorum sitting at table as we get started again. And we've got enough people here to get started. So we are moving on. The Eversource petition was approved on consent, so we move on to the referral of proposed zoning article amendment Article 18. The referral has been approved on consent, but we will hear a brief presentation from our CRC chair and I believe Stephanie, sort of summarizing, Stephanie, I think is here, summarizing clean energy as we move into this process. And then we'll have a little bit of time for questions, particularly of those that don't sit on CRC, as it's going to CRC and Planning Board for hearing. So I'm going to pass it on to Pam.
Thank you. And we have a presentation, I think that's, should be lined up.
I will get that set up right now. Oh, looks like Athena is beating me to it.
And here's Stephanie, there she is. So I'm going to start out. I wanted to introduce Stephanie Ciccarello, who's the Director of Sustainability in Amherst. She and I will present this and want to recognize that this is quite a milestone with some work still to be done. Before I do anything about the presentation, however, I just want to speak to the patience and hard work of all the town staff that have had input into this document. Their expertise has refined what we'll see today, what's being referred. And in particular, I do want to recognize Stephanie for the work with starting with the solar bylaw working group and carrying through to the work with the CRC most recently. So thank you, Stephanie.
Welcome.
We want to introduce the Amherst Clean Energy Bylaw, and it is next slide, please. The original charge, if you will, for the solar bylaw working group was to draft a solar zoning bylaw, including standards and guidelines that will guide and encourage responsible development of solar installations, including battery storage. So it's a pretty direct charge and something that we have been working toward. Thank you. Stephanie.
Thank you, Pam. Athena, if you could go to the next slide, please. So the solar bylaw working group, the charge which Pam just read to you, the solar bylaw working group was convened to develop the regulatory process. And this was done in March of 2022. At the time, there were 7 voting members who were to convene for that group. It was a member from the Planning Board, the Energy and Climate Action Committee, Conservation Commission, a rep from the Water Supply Protection Committee, and then 3 community residents were also asked to participate and interviewed for the positions on that working group. I will say that the folks that were chosen to be on this committee were folks with specific expertise, but not specifically solar expertise. We did have 2 members who did have some particular solar experience and expertise, but it was not the primary guideline for participating in this committee. They met from June of 2022 till November of 2023 in bi-weekly meetings. And during that time, they had various experts come in and speak to them on various issues. They also had representative from KP Law to discuss some decisions for bylaws that were adopted and actually challenged in some other communities to try to ensure that their process was a more smoother process in terms of getting this bylaw at the time adopted. So from that point to November 17th of 2023, they continued to work on the draft document. They had a final draft that went to the town manager. The draft that went to the town manager was not a complete document, so it did need further development. So in December, the town council received the final draft, which was referred then to the Community Resources Committee for further development. And that process began in March 26th of 2024. So from that point until present, the CRC has been reviewing the document. In August of 2025, until more recently, the CRC review edit had to incorporate new state regulations and guidelines for clean energy siting and permitting. And that includes battery energy storage. So at this point is when the solar bylaw then changed to become the clean energy bylaw. If you could go to the next slide, please. So in 2024, the state passed the Mass Clean Energy Law. A major component of this law was to create the Division of Clean Energy Siting and Permitting. And as a major objective of that convening of that division was to create a process that would expedite the permitting for large-scale solar projects. Until that point, sometimes projects could take several years, if not even, as in our case, decades. Ours was for different reasons, but it could take several communities lengthy time and process in order to get their solar projects developed. So the Division of Clean Energy Siting and Permitting created a new process which expedited the permitting process into 12 months. So the final regulations for that process were promulgated on March 1st of this year. It establishes state review and permitting jurisdictions. So solar projects over 25 megawatts and battery energy storage projects over 100 megawatt hours were then going to be automatically reviewed by the state. Anything below those thresholds then put the onus on municipalities to consolidate a permit process that would also require them to do so within a 12-month period. So below the thresholds, as I mentioned, of those of the state review. They provided a draft municipal bylaw template that provided kind of a guideline of the permitting process, and that also kept in mind the 12-month review deadline. I will say that the review deadline does include, which isn't necessarily reflected here, but it does include a 90-day pre-filing process that happens before the 12-month period starts. So that's the process where very similar to how large scale projects are often dealt with in town, is that developers will often meet with town staff to discuss the projects and sort of look at the process before them and what hurdles and things they might face, or information that they might need to provide in order to have a smoother regulatory process. This 90-day pre-filing period pretty much is that process. It's just more formalized. So that would require some coordination with town staff, and town staff working with the various boards and committees that would do this permitting. So the regulations officially take effect July 1st, where municipalities may start to offer the consolidated permit option. However, municipalities must have the consolidated permit pathway available to applicants by October 1st of this year. Otherwise, the state will oversee the projects automatically. So that pretty much leads us to where we are now, where we have incorporated the state's permitting guidelines into the draft. It does include battery energy storage now, and there is a more defined process and time period for the permitting. And you can go to the next slide, Athena.
Our next steps, we are on bullet number 2. We've already passed that hurdle. The vote tonight was to refer this document back to the planning board and to CRC for the actual public hearings. So we will start those on May 20. It will be a joint meeting the night of the planning board's normal meeting time, in an effort to simplify the process for people who are interested in this topic to actually be able to follow the conversation. So they will not have to go to a CRC meeting or the planning board to catch up. We'll try to keep it somewhat unified initially to get the thing rolling. At some point when we have concluded those hearings and we are wrapping this up, we will go to legal counsel once more, get KP Law review. It will go to GOL and finally come to town council for readings, the first and second. The second we will vote on it, and then we will hopefully have a clean energy bylaw in effect. Should someone knock on our door by October 1, we will be ready to welcome them in and develop our safe, clean energy development.
Thank you. Are there any questions about the clean energy bylaw? The current draft that is headed to hearing is in the packet. It is extensive. It includes a lot. Many of us have been dealing with this for multiple years, as you've heard, but any questions on the process or even what is going on in that bylaw, or specific questions about the bylaw? And I will state, as you get through it and understand more of it, send any questions you have to the CRC chair, Pam, and she can always incorporate them into any hearings we are holding. Councilor Ryan.
So if we do not meet this timeline that you're describing and someone knocks on our door, what happens?
Pam.
It would go as a normal permitting process through either the ZBA or the planning board with today's standards and conditions.
Except if they file a consolidated permit, it would follow the state regulations, as Stephanie said. In 12 months, yes. Sam.
Thank you, Mandy, and thank you, Stephanie, and the committee for their hard work on this. Scanning through the document, it's certainly very long and thorough with lots of details. I'm curious, and I assume, did the committee take into account the impact on the law on smaller homeowners? I saw in here a few references to salt and de-icing and things, and I'm just wondering if there were discussions regarding anything that might delay or prevent individual homeowners from putting things on their roof? I assume, knowing who is involved, that this is already taken care of, but I think the public, some may have questions regarding that.
Do you want to tackle that, Pam? I can try if you want me to. Yeah, so the question was about individual, how does this affect individual homeowners that might want to put solar on their roof? So the bulk of the bylaw applies only to ground mount solar, not roof mounted solar. Roof mounted solar, in all of that language, is an accessory use. So it would be permitted essentially, you might still need the consolidated permit, but the regulations wouldn't change much from the current ones in use in terms of how it's permitted now, other than they could choose the consolidated permit route to guarantee 12 months, or you can go non-consolidated permit. But the bulk of all of that writing about salt and all of that applies only to ground mount systems.
Thank you, and I think that's helpful information for anyone who might be listening.
Yep. Kathy?
Having spent, 1 year on CRC tackling this, I commend you for moving it forward. And I just want to point out, anyone who reads this and say, oh my gosh, is that complicated? The state, in its interest to speed up the process, has produced one of the most regulatory heavy things that I have ever seen, where they're doing a lot of the direct regulating, George. So, and some of it is they're also deciding whether the site is suitable or not. They're going to have a rating system. So if you attempt to read this and try to figure out what is this and what is that, some of it is directly from what towns are now required to do. They didn't simplify the process.
No. Are there any other questions or comments on this one? If not, we are going to move on. So we are moving on. 42. The regional school district borrowing order was approved, so we have dealt with item 8C. We are moving on to item 8D. Community Preservation Act Committee appropriations for FY27. We had split this into 3 separate items with a motion that helped before that, which was to divide. The motion to divide was on consent and it was divided out, and the approval of the 2 orders that did not involve after division the Jones Library were approved. So the only thing on our agenda right now for discussion is the Jones Library order. And so I am going to make the motion for that order and seek a second, and then we will have discussion on that order. So I move in accordance with Charter Section 5.6, having been published on the town bulletin board for a minimum of 10 days on March 24th, 2026, a public forum held on April 6, 2026, and having been reviewed by the Finance Committee with a report on April 23rd, 2026, to adopt Council Order FY 2707A2, an order appropriating the FY 2027 Community Preservation Act funding for restoration and preservation of the Jones Library in the amount of $330,000 as shown on page 15 of the motion sheet. Is there a second?
Second, Devlin Gauthier.
The motion is moved and seconded and is on the floor for debate and discussion at this time. Is there any debate and discussion? Kathy?
Yeah, I'm just going to, since I get to vote later, I'm just going to explain my vote by infusing a few pieces of information. I'm going to be voting against it, and I'm going to do it for 3 reasons, the first 2 being the most important. I've always thought of Community Preservation Act funds as tax dollars. These come from a 3% surcharge on property taxes, less than 20% of the funds from the state match. As a counselor, I agreed with the statement, although I realized we didn't enact it as policy, that there would be no new taxes for the project. I always considered the original 1 million CPA allocation to Jones to be tax dollars along with the general fund. Early on, I tried and failed to make this count as part of the 15.8. In other words, general fund would only be 14.8. And I failed to do that. And just so people know, the 1 million that's coming from CPA for specials collection is being funded by borrowing, and the debt service on CPA is counted toward the town's debt ceiling. So it's integrated with our financing. The second reason is I do not think the project is eligible because it is supplanting funds that are already allocated to the project, contracted for and financed with debt authorization. It's a very unusual situation that the whole project is financed. The CPA funds, if you read our own CPA guidelines, are meant to be supplemental, adding to a project, enabling matching funds to secure grants. Indeed, the words in Amherst CPA website say the funds are intended to increase available resources for community preservation. Many of the letters we received from the council in support of the Jones request appeared to believe that the funds would add to the scope of the project, that we were buying something more. They were perhaps unaware that the work had already been funded and explicitly contracted for with the construction company, and the town had taken out debt to finance the project. CPNs are not to supplant work that's already underway, including work funded by debt authorization. It's unusual that the town would debt finance such a large project for a building that's not owned by the town, but we have done that, and the trustees assured us they'd be able to raise the funds. When we took a second meeting of the Finance Committee to get opinions about supplanting, you've already heard from a public comment, two of the knowledgeable sources, including one at DOR, a lawyer, said it was a gray area. You could argue for or against it. And one, the executive director of the Community Preservation Coalition, noted that this went against the spirit of the law. Third, and this is my more minor reason, is CPA was never mentioned by the trustees a year ago when we took a final vote on whether or not to rescind the debt authorization. The trustees assured us they intended to raise the funds to finance their share. They listed foundations, state and federal sources. They never listed CPA. If they had, I would have voted to rescind. We have better use for our CPA funds, our tax dollars, for housing, for our school and town playgrounds, for our recreation areas. To honor the no additional tax dollar public statement and out of concern for supplanting, I will be voting no.
Thank you. Councillor Lord.
Thank you. Oh, that's really loud. I want to begin by saying clearly that I support the library project itself. I'm excited that Amherst will have a beautiful and expanded public space that can serve residents across generations. I believe deeply in the value of a strong public library for our children, our teens, our English language learners, for those who come seeking connection, knowledge, refuge, and opportunity. I want to thank the Library Building Committee, staff, advocates, donors, and residents who have given so much time, energy, expertise, and love to bring this vision forward. Their dedication deserves recognition and gratitude. I've heard from people on the yes and no side of the vote, and I thank you all for reaching out and sharing your point of view, your stories, and your truths. I don't make this decision lightly, but I will be voting no, and I want to be clear what my no is not. It is not aligned in any way with those who have weaponized this project through appeals to DOJ or the current federal administration. Those actions have caused real harm and fear in our community. To engage with this administration to strip away funding from this project was successful in causing financial harm to the project, but what it has also done is to show that the safety and livelihood of many of us in this community are not considered. We're talking about an administration that targets our immigrants, our Black and Brown community, our trans and gender nonconforming folks, our queer community, and our lower income residents. At a time when Black women are losing jobs, many estimate over 300,000 due to DOJ, trans and gender nonconforming people face increasing attacks and dehumanization, and vulnerable young people are carrying unbearable pain. Our community has recently lost a member of that community. And I just wonder how they would have felt to see a building built with them in mind and in gender inclusive bathrooms. But to engage with this administration or DOJ is a line too far, in my humble opinion, for those who center humanity. And that kind of politics is heartbreaking and dangerous. So my vote should not be confused with that agenda. It is not the same, and I reject that framing completely. My concerns are grounded in governance, process, and trust. This council previously stated that we would not commit additional taxpayer funds to this project. Whether one argues that the town share is just this percent or that CPA funds are already collected and therefore somehow different, I just believe that residents hear one thing and then see another. And when we bend language to fit a desired outcome, we erode public trust. And that matters to me. I've also heard that if we vote no tonight, the people who want to use the library will suffer. I respectfully disagree with that framing. The library building project itself will remain. The need before us is primarily financial stabilization. There are pathways to restore the lost grant funding, maybe, through legal action. There are community pathways to rebuild and protect the endowment over time, and I believe that Amherst is capable of meeting that challenge when we work together. For me, voting no tonight does not mean turning my back on the library. It means taking responsibility in a different way. I'm committed to helping raise funds, supporting community fundraising efforts, and doing my part in practical terms. I've canceled a streaming subscription to begin making recurring donations, a little bit, but all that I can do, and I'll keep on doing more. And I will offer my labor and energy to help close gaps and support the long-term success of this library. This vote is difficult because I care about the project and the people it serves. But tonight, I'm just letting you know that I'm voting no, not against the library, but in favor of accountability, public trust, and a more sustainable way forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Pam?
Thank you. I appreciate the hard work of fundraising, seeking grants wherever possible. Local tax dollars, unfortunately, do not fall into that category, and I can't support the use of CPAC money for this project. Thank you.
Any other comments before we move to a vote? Anna?
Well, I was panicking, so I would like to lower and re-raise my hand because I was still gathering my thoughts. And now that other hands have gone up, I will lower and re-raise to go to the back of the line here.
Andy?
I think this project, this project is going to get built. The question is, how hard is it going to be to do the final lifting, and what risk are we going to put the endowment at? And I sit on the Joint Capital Planning Committee this term, and this year in our report we suggested that the town continue to see CPA as a source of funding for appropriate uses that are that the town has needs for. So to me, this is a targeted use for some historic pieces of the library project. And just the CPA committee looked at all the options, and they did their work, and they said that this was an appropriate use. And I feel like we should honor that process as well. I just think, the project's going to go ahead, the library will be built, but right now we're just making it just a little bit harder for the folks who are out there trying in a very difficult fundraising environment. And the committee who was charged with looking at the various uses saw this as an appropriate use. And so I'm going to vote yes.
Sam? Sam?
Thank you, Mandy. So this project, the Greater Library Project, is clearly one of the most controversial projects in town for the last 8 years. I respect advocates on both sides, and I believe they're honest brokers, genuine, and I wouldn't label those who are opposed to the library as destructive or seeking problems. I think the motivations are real and genuine. Similarly, I think that those who are in favor of it are, and I think it's important, not just for this, but going forward, that the discussions, in my opinion, should be based on the subject matter rather than seeking to label individuals. The decision for the library was voted by a prior council to authorize the debt obligation. And members on that had their own reasoning for doing so. there was an initial CPA. I was on the CPA committee with the original $1 million that was authorized. I was the lone member who did not vote in favor. I abstained on that. But as we come to this, I was a former chair of the CPA committee for 3 years. The town has a CPA committee to generate prioritization of CPA funds, which are tax dollars. Of course, these are town tax dollars that can only be used in certain types of work. But, you know, the CPA committee has 9 members. In this case, they had 8. I believe it was 7 who voted. And they're tasked with juggling priorities and applications that come before them. How anyone might have voted, were they on that CPA committee, including myself, is not, in my mind, the primary issue here. It's that we have a committee who deliberated, and some may think that it didn't deliberate thoroughly. Others may think they deliberated too much, but they deliberated, and this is part of the process of having a group. Individual decisions may not always win out, and they chose their rankings accordingly. So for me, the determination of whether to vote in favor of this funding is not based on my personal belief whether I would be in favor or against. It's based on supporting the process and respecting the CPA committee. And if there were an unequivocal statement from our town attorney or counsel who indicated that this did not qualify, I would not be supporting it. But we received an opinion from the town council, meaning the lawyer, that said that it does qualify. There are other opinions out there, but without an unequivocal negation or quote unquote vetoing of the CPA committee's right to do so, I'll vote in favor of respecting the CPA committee's decision. Thank you.
Anna.
So I've, been spinning around on this one for a long time since we've had it in finance. And I think what drives me nuts here is that the library project team has had to scrap for every dollar and has had funds clawed back from it. And that has hurt the project, and ultimately that hurts the town. It's not just the library. The library is a part of this community. And so I don't fault them for seeking additional CPA funds. And where I am stuck is, if these were truly additional funds, I would have zero qualms supporting it. And I want to be very clear that I think the library absolutely should seek CPA funds. And I don't think that is that using CPA dollars is counter to assertions that people have made in the past about town spending. My challenge with this is that the items are in an existing contract that has been signed, and a project that will happen regardless. And so while our lawyer will argue in court that it is not supplanting, where I feel that I continually need more information is and I've been searching for other precedent about contracts that have been, signed and work underway in other areas, not work underway on this application, and then receiving additional funds for a project that's going to go forward regardless of where those funds come from. So I'm struggling with this one, and I'm just naming that I'm struggling with this one because I do see where the argument for supplanting is strong here, given that this contract has been signed. All that said, because of the current spinning state, I may need to abstain. I would love to hear people argue for why it is or why it isn't, because I continue to be not fully convinced either way that it is or is not supplanting.
Councilor Ryan.
Well, I can't answer that question. Our attorney responded to it. I'm not an attorney. What I do know is this project will be completed. What I do know, in a year, there'll be a dedication. And hopefully all of you will be there. What I do know, it will be a transformative project. What I do know is a town jewel will be given another 100 years of life. It will be enjoyed by countless tens of thousands of people, most of whom we will never know. But they will know us, and they will remember us, and they will be profoundly grateful for what we've done. The Jones Capital Campaign has raised over $9 million to date. No project in the history of this town has ever come close to that figure. If that does not represent a level of giving and commitment, I don't know what does. Yet it still has to raise another $6.8 million to fulfill its commitment. And it will fulfill its commitment. As you know well, the endowment is the backstop. Whatever it cannot raise in the intervening year and a year and a half will come out of the endowment. But I think you also know it shouldn't be 6.8 million, it should be 5.8 million. Where did that $1 million go? Oh, that's right, there was a federal grant from NEH that was clawed back. It was rescinded. Where do you think the money comes for federal grants? It comes from taxpayer dollars, just like the CPA. No one on this, well, I can't speak for anyone else, I'll speak for myself. The commitment was not to raise the 15, whatever it was, town commitment, and that we have stuck to, and that I would stick to this day. If someone came back to us and said, I'm sorry, you're going to have to raise the town's borrowing, I would, even though it would break my heart, I would vote against it. But never in a moment did I think that that was saying, but if the CPA, taking taxpayer dollars set aside for this particular kind of purpose, were to be granted to the Jones Library, that somehow that was a violation of some oath I had made. That's utter nonsense. You know very well how hard it is to raise money in this environment. You know how hard people work, and they had $1 million clawed away from them. So now they have to raise 6.8 million. And now tonight, it looks like we're going to rescind another 330,000. I guess I would just ask you to think, who gets hurt in the end? The endowment is going to be put under greater strain. In the long term, yes, the money will be raised. In the long term, yes, the damage will be undone. But in the short term, we will contribute our little 330,000 to that damage. What's the glory or honor in that?
Are there any other comments before we move to a vote? Lynn?
This unfortunately has brought out all of the controversy that has existed around this project from even before this council was first seated. This project has been in court. It's cost the town an enormous amount of dollars to defend it in court, and we won. My biggest concern about this vote is that if we vote yes, we'll end up in court yet again. And it'll cost the town even more money. More money that in fact we could be sending to the library to help them reach their goals. This is the reason I abstained at the Finance Committee meeting and will probably abstain tonight because I just do not want to see us back in court over this issue. I am not only a supporter of the library, my husband and I are donors. That does not constitute a conflict, by the way. I want to be very clear. I have not gone out and solicited donations, but I am a donor. So I regret that this has come to seem and feel to people like non-support of the library project. I think what George said is we will dedicate this library in about another less than a year. And we hope everybody will be there. And from then on, people will enjoy this wonderful facility. Thank you.
Are there any further comments? Andy?
Yeah. I mean, this is presented as if it's a controversial, effort, and certainly there's been a fair amount of hubbub around it. But when you look at the when you ask the broadest gathering of residents, when it was taken to a vote, it was a substantial majority that said yes, let's do this. And in the intervening time, we've had COVID, we've had tariffs. There's all kinds of reasons why the costs have gone up. And so to find extra resources to help mitigate that a little bit seems appropriate. But I don't see it as a controversial project, and I think it's broadly supported. It's unfortunate that we have to live in fear of litigation to do, to avoid doing what the majority of our residents told us to do.
Further comments, or are we ready to move to a vote? Seeing no other hands, we will move to a vote. We start with Anna Devlin Gauthier.
Abstain.
Lynn Griesemer.
Abstain.
Mandy Jo Hannicky is an aye. Counselor Lord.
Nay.
Sam McLeod.
Aye.
Pam Rooney.
No.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
No.
Jennifer Taub.
No.
Counselor Walker.
No.
Counselor Brevik.
No.
Counselor Cano Martin.
No.
Andy Churchill.
Yes.
There are 4 yeses, 7 nays, 2 abstentions, and it needed a majority present required to pass, and it did not receive that, so the motion fails. We will be moving on to 8D3 was already dealt with, as I said earlier. So we are moving on to item 8E, which is Charter 2.8C, request for information on town manager executive order on immigration activities. I will, am I on here? I will recognize Counselor Brevik to make the motion.
Great.
Well, that's after. We haven't gotten there yet. Counselor Brevik.
Okay, I will read the motion. In accordance with section 2.8C of the Amherst Town Charter, I move to require the town manager and any department head or heads he so chooses to appear before the town council at the May 18th, 2026 regular town council meeting to answer questions and provide more detail on the statements and action items included in the executive order issued by the town manager's office on March 3rd, 2026, as it relates to the interaction between town staff and federal immigration agents.
If you want to add stuff now, you can make it now, and then it's not a motion to amend. It's yes.
Okay. I am going to amend the motion to add another date by which we would provide questions to the town manager in advance. And that date. So to add a clause at the end saying with questions provided to the town manager by May 4th, 2026 to give 2 weeks for preparation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Sorry, I'm making my notes on the motion. So the motion reads, the motion has been made and seconded, and the motion reads as it reads in the motion sheet. So exactly as printed there with the clause added after the end of that motion. So it would say, executive order issued by the town manager's office on March 3rd, 2026, as it relates to the interaction between town staff and federal immigration agents with questions provided by May 4th to the town manager. Is that it? So that is the motion on the floor. Councilor Brevik, would you like to speak to your motion?
I'll keep it brief since we've got a lot to cover tonight, and I provided a memo in the packet that explains kind of the background and rationale for this. It really, in its essence, is just a response to a lot of requests from residents to hear more and have more direct questions answered. I think what we really want to get at is what would happen in different instances. And so I think it just requires a little more direct question and answer. And I think this also will help remove counselors from being in between the public and the town manager on this. And you know, I would encourage bringing along Chief Ting for this as well. I think it would be really helpful for folks to hear from him as well, though I know we can't directly compel him to attend. I think that it's helpful to not have a kind of chain of communication with these kind of matters, that it's really helpful to have that direct communication. So I hope that this provides an opportunity for that. And I know that there are other groups, the CSSJC and the Human Rights Commission both have similar interests in having a session like this. For timeliness, I'm hoping that we can move this forward tonight. And then I would, and maybe other counselors would also do, you know, some work over the next week to make sure we're collecting questions and trying not to duplicate efforts so that we don't have to, you know, have this type of session in multiple different settings. So kind of consolidating all of our efforts here for this one session. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Brevik. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? Anna.
So a while ago, Paul and Chief Ting came to Applewood and did a talk, and he had shared that presentation with us, and then I think had offered to do something similar. It sounds like, Jill, you're asking for with a Q&A with the chief. Is there anything in addition to kind of what was covered in that you anticipate being covered here? I'm not saying it's not necessary. I think it can be a helpful avenue, but I'm curious if we look at that presentation, or is it really just the Q&A part that kind of sets this apart from that presentation? Like there was a Q&A at that too, but is there like the in advance prepared Q&A kind of part, the difference between that presentation and what you're proposing?
Councilor Brevik?
I don't think I can speak directly to the differences between that presentation and what we'd be asking for here, but I think that the questions that I'm getting the sense that people have are really related to policy and the directives that our police department is given around direct response to federal immigration agents were they to be in Amherst. So I think it's getting at more of the details and more of the kind of what actions are APD officers being directed to take in these instances. And I think there were additional questions after that.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I think that the presentation that I had the opportunity to go to did address a lot of those. So I think it would be helpful to have that presented to the council and other members of the public as well.
Thank you. I'm going to skip over myself and go to Councilor Cannon Martin.
I had thought I had an extra second to look at that presentation and tell you.
I can go myself if you don't want to go.
I mean, I was just gonna say, I did review the presentation briefly. I didn't spend as much time with it as I could have, but I think that it was very helpful in clarifying like the law and what the law says. But I do think that people in the community, people I've heard from, like they have like specific scenarios in mind, like what would happen if this happened or that happens. And you know, sometimes the policy isn't really clear, like to the point where you would know. You'd have to kind of talk through it and say what factors would go into like the decision making and how an officer might respond. So I think in that respect, it would be really helpful to have this session and have the opportunity for Q&A.
Thank you. I'm the only hand left, so I'll talk. I think this will be helpful, particularly after reading about what happened in Burlington, Vermont, and the tension, and I don't even know how to describe what happened there appropriately, to be able to ask if something like that happened here, what would that look like here? But I wanted to say as president, if this motion passes, what I would ask is that all questions be provided to, at this point, to me and the clerk, who could then consolidate them to send them all to the manager, so that if the same question, he gets one document then with questions instead of receiving multiple times and all, it'll just be easier. And then I would ask the liaisons, the council liaisons to the Human Rights Commission, particularly the Human Rights Commission and CSSJC, to reach out to their members and forward any questions their members may have from them, ask them to send them either to you or to me directly. So that per, Councilor Brevik's wish, we can try and get as many questions and cover as many relevant committees as possible. So we do have liaisons to those two committees. There might be others that people think are relevant. Those two are the ones that popped up. So that's all I would ask if this motion passes. And I would consolidate them. And when I emailed the questions, when I forward them to the manager, I would CC the whole council, so the whole council sees what questions were received and asked. Anna?
Just to help folks orient, if you're looking for that email from Paul, it was March 22nd. And Amber, yeah, that the Q&A, or Jill, I can't remember, I'm sorry, Councilor Brevik or Councilor Kenna Martin, which one of you said this, but the Q&A on specific scenarios was really helpful for the folks at Applewood to be able to ask. And that was a huge part of the discussion. So I imagine that would be a large part here. I think for me, the helpful reference point in the presentation is kind of a jumping off point for my own questions. So if folks are looking for it, it was March 22nd.
Thank you.
22nd.
2-2. Any other comments, questions before we move to a vote? It looks like we don't have any, and that we might be ready to move to a vote. This is a motion, I'm going to read it since we've had a counselor rejoin us. In accordance with section 2.8C of the Amherst Town Charter, to require the town manager and any department heads he so chooses to appear before the town council at the May 18th, 2026 regular town council meeting to answer questions and provide more detail on the statements and action items included in the executive order issued by the town manager's office on March 3rd, 2026, as it relates to the interaction between town staff and federal immigration agents, with questions provided by May 4th to the town manager. So we'll move to a vote. We start with Lynn.
Aye.
Mandy Jo Haneke is an aye. Councilor Lord.
Aye.
Sam McLeod.
Abstain.
Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Councilor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
Councilor Walker.
Yes.
Councilor Brevik.
Yes.
Councilor Kenna Martin.
Yes.
Andy Churchill.
Yes.
And Anna Devlin Gauthier.
Aye.
That is unanimous, 12 in favor, none opposed with one abstention. Motion passes. We are moving on. As we move on, I want to thank the whole council for attempting to be efficient. We might get out of here at an almost reasonable time. So we are moving on to item 8F, proposed amendment to Town Council Rule of Procedure 8.2. This was removed from consent, so I will make the motion. The motion is to delete Town Council Rule of Procedure Rule 8.2C in its entirety and re-letter the remaining sections of Rule 8.2 appropriately. Is there a second?
Shade seconds.
Kathy's got it. Okay, Anna cedes to Kathy. I'm gonna, Anna, would you like to give the GOL report?
Yeah, sure. So GOL discussed this on March 24th, and the committee discussed the pros and cons of deleting this and renumbering. And essentially the message that came through from the clerk of the council and from Mandy as proposing the rule change is that removing this rule eases the workload on the clerk of the council, and this rule has largely not been employed. We have not used it and instead have placed items on the council agenda anyway. So the motion, we had 2 members absent that day. We did still have a quorum, but the motion passed unanimously with those absent and with those present. I don't know what the absent folks thought. And two folks absent to delete Council Rule of Procedure 8.2C in its entirety and re-letter the remaining sections of Rules of Procedure 8.2 appropriately.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? I know Councilor Kenna Martin, you removed it, so I assume you've got something.
Yeah, and then that's why I didn't know what it was about because I missed that GOL meeting. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I was just wondering if you could just explain, like, again, the rationale for it, briefly.
Yeah, so people saw my email to GOL on it. I proposed it because it puts, so it's a weird thing to say an automatic referral that then you're putting on a council agenda. So are you allowed to put it on a council agenda, or do you have to automatically refer it? Question number one. We've been putting them on council agendas, but then you've got this confusion. Well, wasn't it automatically referred without anything? Yeah. And what I had heard from the council clerk was that particularly bond agencies want to see an actual motion to refer to finance passed. They don't like a simple in a president's report, this was automatically referred. They like to see the actual vote. And then to give an example, in reading the rest of Rule 8.2, there is a section of the rule that allows the president to refer things that aren't covered by the automatic referral in cases where time might be necessary. So removing this does not prevent the situation where we faced when the town, for example, the easiest one to refer to is when the town council on a council meeting on a Monday asked that the manager issue a financial order for the borrowing of the middle school roof. The finance committee meeting was the next day, but we didn't have the order at all. So the council couldn't vote that referral. There is a section of section 8.2, there is, I don't know, it's G, it's going to get renumbered, re-lettered, that allows the president to do that. So even if 8.2C is removed, the president could still have done that referral under a different section of the rules to make that efficient. So in that sense, I didn't see an issue with practice necessarily. It's more matching the rule to our current practice, but it wouldn't prevent the council from operating efficiently if it needs to operate in that more expedient manner. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we're going to move to a vote. We start with me. I am an aye. Counselor Lord.
Aye.
Sam McLeod.
Aye.
Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Jennifer Todd.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Bevick.
Yes.
Counselor Cano Martin.
Yes.
Andy Churchill.
Yes.
Anna Devlin Gauthier.
Aye.
And Lynn Griesemer.
Aye.
That is unanimous. I want to, before we move on, ask the council clerk, there were some questions I received today about links to council rules of procedure maybe not being updated on council pages. I don't know how, because when I click, I think I get the right one. We are operating, the last printed council rules we have is also out of date. So is it possible to get a print copy for all councilors once this rule is updated so that all councilors can have a copy in print, as well as obviously updating the council webpage for it? As just a request, as we just changed the rules, I think that would be helpful to everyone. Moving on, we dealt with appointments under consent. That was just a hand. Are you like pre-handing as we? Okay. Did you want to ask the clerk something about rules, or can I move on the agenda? Okay, Pam.
Probably a year ago, I think we sent, this is rules related in selection of appointments, in the process of appointing people. And it had to do with how far we look back to look at active CAFs and the timing based on public notice of vacancies in the bulletin. And I would love to ask if GOL could kindly put that back on the agenda at some point, because a year later, we're facing the same situation and we didn't fix it.
So I'm going to consider that a question under committee reports, which is the section we were moving to. Well, we're moving to that section. So Anna.
I'll put my hand back up. Happily, the practice of GOL has been that if for action to be considered, please submit it in its final form that you'd like it to be adopted. So if you propose the change, it would be a mocked up version of the policy of multi-member body appointments. I'm going to be honest with you, GOL is swamped at this point. And so I will happily take that up for the same reasons that you are frustrated with it. I too am frustrated with it. And because right now we don't have a proposed exact language to discuss, it's a bigger project for GOL. because we'd have to go through and wordsmith it. So it would be faster if you would submit, or if anyone is interested in sending in the language that you'd like to see it changed to, that would be awesome. It's on my list. It's just not at the top of it right now.
Thank you. So we're in committee reports. We start with council committee reports. Mind you, everything we do from now on delays the executive session. That could take a while. So just be mindful of time as we might want to, but and we have a meeting next week. Are there any council committees that feel like they need to report on something now that cannot wait till next week? Please raise your hand. Anna.
GOL will be finishing our discussion, I'm committing GOL people across from me, finishing our discussion on the Human Rights Commission now charge tomorrow. And we will begin our discussion of the Resident Oversight Board motion, which is a big motion that we were given to kind of figure it out. So we will begin that discussion tomorrow. That discussion will certainly not be done tomorrow, but at least we will be able to start kind of getting into that. And I know that you all are eager for those charter recommendations to come back as well. So we're going to try to map out our plan for those, but we've got a lot of big stuff on our plate. So I appreciate the patience with GOL as we work our way through it.
Thank you. Kathy.
Just a quick note on the Finance Committee report that you have in the packet on page 9 is the budget timeline schedule that we've set up on which topics are happening and on which day. If anyone, we will all get a copy. It'll maybe online on May 1st. If anyone has questions for the different sections, please send them to me and I'll make sure that Sean gets them. We have people responsible for each section so we can do consolidated. And it's a great thing if we can get them before the meeting so that people, the department heads who come to the meeting can be answering the questions. So I'm just, you may not want to pour over the budget, but if you do pour over the budget, please send your questions in.
So, and I will add on to that. I had sent out an email asking if anyone that was not on finance would like to attend the budget meetings, the review meetings. I received no responses, so I'm not planning on noticing any of those meetings as full council meetings. Any other council committee? Andy?
I'm just curious when, for example, when the Finance Committee discusses the school budget, I assume you'll be having school administrators coming in to talk about it. We've been getting a fair amount of interest and questions about what's going to happen between, scenario 2 or the original submitted budget. Is that a public meeting? Should we be encouraging folks to direct their attention to that particular session, or is that more of an internal deliberation process?
Kathy?
It's a public meeting. We take public comments at the beginning of the session, Andy, and Lynn got consolidated questions. They went to the superintendent more than a week ago so that they would have those questions 2 weeks in advance. And because we got that budget in advance, we could go through both the superintendent's budget and the augmented budget with specific questions about items. We haven't posted the questions. We haven't in the past done that, but often if we do that, you can get answers to them more quickly. And we're anticipating most of it will focus on the elementary school. We have just a few questions of the regional. And that will be the first part of that meeting, which is that Thursday of May 7th, the first week.
Anna.
And that, by the way, it's not the end of the discussion. That's the discussion we're having with the superintendent and whatever staff she might bring. When we get to what do we want to say based on what we've heard and what we've read, there'll be more discussions as we get to drafting our recommendations.
Anna.
I'm thinking about how to try to increase communication and collaboration between the town council and the school committees. And I'm curious if there's been thought around inviting at least the Amherst School Committee to that particular meeting and having it be called as a joint meeting of those bodies. Because I think, by the time we get to the hearing, they might have answers to some of the questions given their role in developing those budgets alongside the superintendent or providing guidance in the way that they do. So I'm curious about trying to find avenues to include the school committee in these discussions. I don't feel that our current system, where they're here and kind of quickly present the budget, but there's not really an opportunity for in-depth discussion is really working. And I would love to try to figure out a better avenue, and this might be one that could work better.
And last year, there's no reason we can't extend an invitation both to the chair of the elementary school and the chair of the regional. They did both come last year and took an active role, and they saw the questions in advance that were sent. So we can at least do that as opposed to making it a meeting of the meetings. Yeah.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. I think that would be a good step. Thank you.
Counselor Kendall Martin.
Yeah, I just had a question because I must have missed an email and I apologize for that about whether counselors intended to attend these finance committee meetings if we're not on finance. So if we were to attend, would we be sort of brought into the main meeting and allowed to speak, in the meeting as a regular participant? Or how does that work?
So technically only if it's called as a council meeting too. That's why I extended the invitation to see if anyone was interested, because I don't want to create more work for the town clerk if there will not be a quorum of the full council at any of these meetings, because they then, the town clerk, if I decide to, there's like 8 of them or something. If I notice all of them, it creates a lot of issues. But if there are specific ones that counselors intend or would like to participate in, we have a little bit of time to change that decision. That's why I brought it up. So email me with which ones you would want to go to. If I believe a quorum will be present, I am more than happy to call those, if the chair of the finance committee agrees, as joint meetings that the chair would run so that counselors can participate in them even if they're not on finance. Maybe my email didn't explain that well enough.
And the difference is that you're otherwise in the 3-minute rule world.
During public comment.
During public comment, that you can always be at the meeting, but you won't be at the table in the same way.
Okay.
And we do try to focus on the questions we've been asking. It's not a decision-making when we're working with the departments. We're gathering information is the way I would say,
Yeah.
to inform whatever decision or recommendations we're making.
Are there any other reports for council committees? Seeing none, are there any committee reports for town committees with councilor members on them?
Just
Kathy?
quickly, Paul, we mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, but tomorrow at 3:30 is a site visit. And you have to indicate if you want to come to that, because we try to control it's, and I don't know how many are signed up already, Paul, because we were sending it directly. So it's at 3:30 to walk around the new school.
It's the Amethyst Brook tour. See no other hands for council committees with councilor members. Are there any liaison reports from any of the council liaisons to committees? Seeing none, we're going to move on. Approval of minutes happened on consent. So Paul, brief.
Brief thing. So the school tours, we have a number of you who've said you'd like to go. I really encourage you, if you can make it, try to attend. Let Angela know that you're going to be there. I appreciate the courtesy of giving us the questions in advance and the time to respond to them and I believe the chief will be interested in attending. Things are developing with that, information new since we made the presentation at Applewood. So, and we are planning to do a table talk exercise with our staff in terms of just some scenario planning. Cup of Joe with Paul is going to be an evening edition because it's going to be associated with the budget with Sean Mangano. I think we're going to be using this room. It's the only room we have available. It's not, we didn't really want to use it, but I think we're scheduled that for May 6th, but we'll let you know what that is. And we're working really hard to get you the budget on May 1st, which you will get.
Thank you. Any questions for the town manager? Councilor Ryan.
Paul, a question from last time. We had asked that you would consider putting a DPW worker on the DPW building committee, and I wondered where that stood.
I'm considering it. We're still, but I haven't made a decision on it yet.
Kathy.
I just have a question. Having heard, I don't actually need the rules of procedure printed, but the budget book, you often ask whether people want a printed copy of the budget book, Paul. Should we be indicating that to?
We will reach out to you. We don't do that in advance. We give you the electronic version on May 1st, and then we ask people who would like a written.
Okay, so,
Then we'll-
so no, I
go-
didn't expect to receive it by May
then
1st,
we'll-
but I
then we'll
just
go
didn't
and
know when
produce
you
them.
would
Yeah.
be wanting to.
We'll send a questionnaire out to you.
Counselor Kenna Martin.
Yes, I just wanted to follow up in terms of the DPW building committee. Would it be possible to make those meetings hybrid so that they could be at least on Zoom and recorded? Because right now it's really hard to, if you can't be there in person on the day of, would that be something that the town could make possible?
That'd be up to the committee to decide, so you could send that request to the chair, I would suggest. Then the committee each committee chooses how they want to meet.
And I believe the chair is Christine Gray Mullen.
Yes.
If you need her email address,
Yeah.
I have it. And you could send it to Pam too, who is on the committee. And she can forward it. Any other questions for the town manager? Seeing none, town council comments starts with the president's report. It is in the packet. Are there any questions on the president's report? And if not, I will move on to future agenda items. Counselor Kenna Martin? Okay. Future agenda items, May 4th will be just as busy. Rental registration report, the request from back in January or February is at this point intended to be on that meeting. There's a number of proclamations. The budget is the big thing on that meeting. We will get the budget presentation, which will also related to that water and sewer rates, the 2.8 information request related to water and sewer rates, the capital improvement plan, the potential other items, some public way items. We might, if I think we have time, come back to the charter review committees beyond the charter referrals. It did not have time this meeting. And then there's the possibility of starting discussing a regional agreement amendment request. We're still trying to figure out whether it was actually voted at the region or not. We've got some technical logistics going on as to what's going on with their request to amend the regional agreement of the school district and stuff. So that's the future agenda items. I'm working with Councillor Lord on another request for information under Charter Section 2.8B, which is requesting committees come before us, or the committee chair, and that would be CSSJC as the committee. So the request would be on May 4th if we can get that memo in time. So I've been working with her on that. Anything else for May 4th or any other questions on future agendas? Seeing none, are there any councillor comments? Seeing none, we took care of the topics not reasonably anticipated in advance, which was the resolution, and that was dealt with on consent and up in item 6A. And so we are going to move to the executive session item of our agenda. If the council votes to enter executive session, councilors will log off of their present Zoom session and log on to a Zoom link provided for the executive session. And once we vote, I'll have a couple of more announcements. So the motion is in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, 893 West Street. The chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. The town council will not return to open session. Is there a second?
Griesmer, second.
Is there any discussion before we move to a vote? Seeing none, we start with Councillor Lord. Sam McLeod.
Aye.
Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Councillor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
Councillor Walker.
Yes.
Councillor Brevick.
Yes.
Councillor Kenna Martin.
Yes.
Andy Churchill.
Yes.
Anna Devon Gauthier.
Aye.
And Lynn Griesemer.
Aye.
And Mandy Jo Haneke is an aye. That is unanimous. The council will now enter into executive session. Please log off of your current Zoom links and check your email. There should be another Zoom link in your email.